Evening, everybody. A very warm welcome into the Microsoft Flight Simulator official channel. My name is Matt. I'm one of the community managers here at Microsoft Flight Simulator. This evening, you're joining us going back in time to the 1950s to showcase the Boeing 707-320C, which is famous Flyer 10, newly revamped and rebuilt from the ground up by Working Title and Builds. Joining me this evening, we've got one of the founders of Working Title, Chris Burnett. Chris, good evening. Good afternoon for you, I should say. A very warm welcome into the stream. How are you?
Good evening. Thank you. Happy to be here. Looking forward to showing off the plane. How was the eclipse?
The eclipse was brilliant. I was just about to say, yeah. So for those of you who are just tuning in, we were actually meant to be going live an hour earlier than this. However, due to the solar eclipse, which lots of people have been enjoying, including on Kenko's stream, who just raided us. So Kenko, thank you very much indeed for the warm raid from all of your community. Welcome in, folks. Yeah, the eclipse was absolutely brilliant. So we pushed back the live stream an hour so that everybody could enjoy the eclipse. And now there's no excuse to miss an evening of 707 flying fun. So Chris, I mean, what have we got in store today? What are we gonna be showcasing?
So I'm gonna take us through a flight, basically a standard A to B flight. We'll fly from New York Kennedy down to Washington Dulles. We'll use the SIVA INS variant of the 707 today with the beautiful TWA livery. So I'm just going to take you guys through the plane. We'll talk about a few features and capabilities that I've seen kind of in streams and discussions over the last 24 hours about some of the systems. So we'll talk through some of that, and then I'm sure we'll have questions from chat, and you may have some questions as well that you want to ask. So we'll just kind of go through a flight and take our time. It's about a 1-hour flight. So we'll have a little bit of time here before departure to go through various systems, and we'll look at the options in the FB and that kind of stuff. And then we'll do the flight and chat during the flight, and then hopefully I won't crash on landing.
I'm sure you'll do great. Brilliant. So for a bit of background, for those of you who are just coming into the live stream and joining us, good evening, as I say, welcome in, everybody. Yesterday, if you missed it, we re-released famous Flyer 10, the Boeing 707-320C, C standing for Combi, which I'm sure we'll go through in a little bit as well, meaning that this aircraft is part freighter and part passenger. So if you did own the previous version of this aircraft, it means that you're going to get this free upgrade in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Or if you didn't have that previous version, you can purchase it in the MSFS 2024 marketplace now as well. As we mentioned, this has been completely revamped from the ground up. Chris and the team at Working Title, as well as Builds, have been putting in a lot of effort to recreate this classic retro airliner. We've seen lots of comments from people in the community about wanting to see us do barrel rolls in the videos and things. I don't know if we'll be doing one of those today, but if you folks would like to share your screenshots of you doing barrel rolls, you are more than welcome to share them. And as we say, if you do have any questions that are prevalent specifically to the Boeing 707, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and Chris and I will do our very best to answer them. Just as a little bit of housekeeping, this isn't a general developer live stream. So if you are going to be asking questions about anything else related to MSFS, now's not the best time to ask them. You're more than welcome to post them on our community spaces like the MSFS forums and our Discord server. But today we are concentrating on this beautiful airliner in the 707. So Chris, I'm going to hand it to you and you can introduce this beautiful bird.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, so I mean, I think I'll start just with a little background on the aircraft. I think a lot of people know about it already, but I'll just do a quick summary. So the 320C was kind of the last version of the plane and most capable. It is a convertible, which means it can be converted from all cargo, all passenger, or a combi. So we've modeled the combi here, and I think Builds did a fantastic job with the model and with the audio as well. So we're really pleased with that collaboration. So yeah, I guess we should get into it. And I'm going to start right off the bat with one of the features that I worked on that I think makes this plane study level. And that is, you'll notice that the window shades are all closed right now, or almost all closed. And this is because of the extensive window shade simulation in the aircraft. So it's one of these little things that I thought would be fun to do. But basically what it does is it looks at outside temperature, phase of flight, and where the sun is in the sky compared to the orientation of the aircraft. And the window shades sort of slowly adjust over time as they might in the real world. So there's an option in the EFB for this, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I just noticed it as I was about to jump in the plane that all these windows are closed, which tells me that it is hot at JFK right now, because when the temperature exceeds a certain temperature and it's sunny, the window shades get closed. So anyways, that's all. There's a few people that are not following the rules. So in any case, let's jump into the aircraft, and we'll talk a little bit more about the plane itself. So let's see here. First, I'm going to actually go back outside to remove the chocks. There are walk around. Yep. I mean, normally we might do that a little bit later, but we'll just do it now. The parking brake is on. And I know we've got 2 hours, or roughly 2 hours, but I think I will probably skip straight into the plane and start talking systems, because a lot of people have done external views. But I will say we're really pleased with it. There are a number of animations underneath that you can see if you're really careful. There are some pack outlets and a few other things. One of the interesting things about this aircraft is the APU was not a factory. I mean, it was available from the factory, but it wasn't standard. And it is actually installed a little bit like the 727, but not quite, in that it's sort of mid to aft in the underneath here on the bottom level. So it replaces some of the baggage space. It's just after the center fuel tank. And so you can see the APU exhaust a little bit later out the side, but it's not in the back, and it sounds a little bit different. The other thing we can notice here is that when there's no hydraulic pressure, the leading edge flaps will kind of dangle down until they're pressurized. So that is what we're seeing here as well. So with that said, let's hop in. Let's see, where should we start? I think we should start by just talking a little bit about the EFB and the kind of thinking behind it. And just to make it a little bit easier, I will just pull this up. It's a little bit crisper here than when it renders in the cockpit, and so this makes it a little bit easier to see. So when you're in the SEVA model, which is what we've got today, the traditional INS, you've got 5 tabs down the right side. We've got our flight engineer tab, which we'll come back and talk about. We've got the SEVA tab. We've got the doors tab, which gives us control over the main level and cargo level doors. We've got our data cards for takeoff, landing, and EPR settings. And then we've got all the options. So I think I'll start with the options, and we'll kind of maybe move backwards here a little bit. And
sure.
Definitely, Matt, please stop me at any time if there are questions that we want to answer or people want more detail on anything.
Absolutely. And
cool.
I think the first thing that I'll say is just we'll go through it in a moment, but as you mentioned with the SEVA stuff, there's multiple different options for navigation. I'm sure we'll cover that, and we'll touch on that when we go through the SEVA things. But one common question that I've seen from quite a few people is about the SEVA INS navigation system yourself. So even though we're going to cover that today, there are other navigation options which you can choose from with the aircraft. So we'll go through that a bit later, I'm sure.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, we can take a minute and talk about it now, actually. So that's right. In the loading screen, you can select from 3 variants. The only difference between the variants are the long-range navigators. All right, so there's the Garmin GNS 530, which most people are familiar with. That gives a nice kind of moving map view. There's the Universal UNS 1, and then there's the SEVA. And all 3 of those, we have references for those installations, which is kind of the reason we chose those 3. We did want to give people options to use any of the 3 kind of generations, I guess, of navigation. I mean, some people really want a moving map, and so the GNS kind of made sense for that. And some people are going to be, they like flying airliners. They want to fly in an RNAV environment. They want to be able to put in their SIDS and their stars and not be restricted in ways that the SIVA or the GNS might restrict you. And so that option exists as well. And like I said, we've got real references of all three in planes. So we tried to stay true to those installations. I will just mention that on the GNS and the UNS, we've sort of simulated the best possible case. So we've simulated a really nice GPS steer computer with vertical pitch control for those. So you can actually fly. You can't fly VNAV, but you can fly glide paths. So if it's a non-RNPAR approach, so like an LPV or an LNAV with LNAV VNAV MINS, those types of approaches can be flown with the UNS or with the GNS, and you will get guidance on the HSI, on the ADI, and the autopilot will couple with those. So yeah, there are a lot of switches that have to be in the right position for all that to work. It's all explained in detail in the manual. So I guess maybe I'll just call that out real quick too. So there's a 200 and some page user guide for this plane up on the flightsimulator.com website. I think you guys have a link to it you can share. But I definitely encourage people to have a look. A lot of effort went into making sure we covered everything that might be confusing or complicated. There is very little about this plane that is just point and click. Although we tried to simplify it as much as possible with the flight engineer, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So.
Awesome. Sounds great. Yeah, well, let's go through it. So this is something that you've decided to create for this. Do you want to talk a little bit about the philosophy? Why did you feel for this specific aircraft, the companion app and these kind of options with the EFB was important to you? I guess we don't need to go through every single individual option. If people want to have a look through those, they can in the manuals. But if there's any particular ones that you wanted to call out, and what was it, particularly about creating an app you thought was appropriate for this aircraft?
Yeah, I think we felt that the aircraft needed a companion app. We definitely wanted a way to convey data like the takeoff and landing speeds and trim settings and so forth. And so we sort of by default knew we needed an app. And so that was kind of the beginning place for it. And as we began planning and design for this aircraft, it made sense to figure out how we were going to make the aircraft approachable, because the last thing we wanted to do was to create something that only a small fraction of simmers could actually enjoy. And I know everyone wants everything study level and as detailed as possible. And I think we really hit that mark. There's a lot of deep simulation in pneumatics and hydraulics and all these kind of systems. But we had to make the plane usable. It flew with 3 or 4 crew in real life. It's a heavy workload, even with the virtual flight engineer, to keep the plane on track, especially navigation. So yeah, there's no takeoff and press LNAV, VNAV and take your hands off and then just turn a couple knobs and you're on final. So it's just not that straightforward.
It's a great representation of how far we've come in aviation over the decades, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can. I mean, I've been flying planes since the early 90s, since I was 14, and I will say this plane keeps me on my toes pretty much more than any other plane. Yeah, it's a challenge to fly. So, anyways, so that's kind of the philosophy there. We wanted the plane to be an immersive experience for experienced simmers, and I think the flight engineer and the call outs kind of help create that atmosphere. But it also really helps people to learn the plane, to learn the systems, to maybe not be super intimidated by it, because so much can be automated. So yeah, and we'll talk as quickly as I can through as many of those things as possible. Cool. I wanted to just really briefly look at some of the options, and you can see the options that I've selected, which most are just on. So the altitude selector mode really quickly. Basically, this thing down here is an altitude alerter, and it basically, you set an altitude and it screams at you when you're at that altitude, and then it will scream at you if you deviate from that altitude. But it could also be hooked up as a pre-selector. And we wanted to make sure we sort of reflected that pre-selector option because it makes using the autopilot much easier. If you want hardcore, set it to alerter. If you want to intercept altitudes automatically with your autopilot, use the pre-selector mode. I like pre-selector mode.
Yeah.
HSI navigation behavior. This is one we've seen a lot of questions about. This is a crazy option, and I can't recommend enough that everyone just use modern. But the legacy HSI behavior, I'll try to summarize it in 30 seconds or less. So when the INS was first invented and installed on these planes, it was sort of really hardwired into the HSI. And the way it worked is that when you put the plane into nav mode, which was driving the HSI from the INS, it completely removes every other feature of the HSI. You lose the compass, you lose everything. And so the desired track that you want to fly is always represented as 0. And then it shows you your kind of track angle error and deviation from that. It's incredibly unintuitive to me, at least.
Yeah.
And there's, so we could spend an hour talking about it, so I won't. But in any case, it is explained in the manual, and there are also references online you can find. But it's just so unintuitive, and I don't like it. So
maybe if you're feeling really crazy, give it a go for one flight. But sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's just weird to lose direction information, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just a weird thing. So anyways, that's what that does. Some of these are really straightforward, right? Syncing altimeters, auto slew. The realistic parking brake behavior is just whether you can just toggle the brake or whether you need to hold the brakes to set and release. So I have that on because I like it, and I have my rudder pedals and everything with my brakes. The realistic clock and chronometer behavior. So let me move this out of the way. And we'll get rid of this temporarily. So that's this. This thing has no electrical power to it whatsoever. It's a wind up, and I wish I could have demonstrated that to you, but I've already wound it, and it keeps whether you wound it in the save state for the aircraft variant.
Right.
So once you've wound it, it will last. I can't remember how long exactly. It probably says in the manual, but it might be like a handful of days. And so based on your clock in the sim, if you get to the point where it would have run out of winds, you have to come here and wind it again. But otherwise, it will just run. So anyways, that's what the
awesome
realistic chronometer is. Window shade automation we already talked about. So the window shades will move according to where the sun in the sky is, whether it's day or night. If you're on the ground, whether it's hot or cold. Of course, you can just turn that off and go adjust the shades however you like. Every shade is adjustable. And then the flight engineer options, there's only, I'll start at the bottom. So the callouts are, the checklist flow callouts are the actual flight engineer flows, which we'll talk about. So that's if you want to hear the voice. If you turn this off, the flows go much faster because there's no readout of them. But I like the ambiance of them. The engine start callouts are exactly as described, and the in-flight callouts are basically all of the other kind of flap altitude type callouts that would be made in the cockpit. So that's what those are. But the takeoff and climb throttle assistance is worth just a minute. So what this does is this feature was born out of me being annoyed with having to constantly adjust my throttles all through the climb. And in the real plane, generally the pilot flying will move the throttles into roughly the right position, and then the flight engineer would actually be leaning forward with their seat centered behind the pedestal, and they'd be kind of tweaking to make sure they're at exactly the right beeper. So that's basically what we're simulating. We just let the flight engineer move the throttles a bit more. It only runs during takeoff and climb. If the option is on, it's activated once you push the thrust up to within about 20% of takeoff thrust, and then it will remain engaged as long as you're climbing until you reach your cruise altitude. And then it will just turn off, and that's it for the flight. And then you can use it again for the next flight. You'll know it's on because this little green light lights up. So whenever this green light here on the ADI is solid, then the flight engineer is actively managing your thrust, and we'll see that later. If it's flashing, it means that you've moved the throttles yourself and that you're in an override mode, which is totally doable. So you can move the thrust however you want, and the flight engineer will time out for 15 seconds, and then we'll take over again. It might be 10 or 15 seconons. So as long as it's flashing, you've got control. When it goes solid again, it means the flight engineer is going to position the throttles according to the EPR bug up here on the engine gauge. So and that's how that works.
I think I was just going to say one thing that I guess is important to point out is that I wonder if some people might get confused and think that that's an auto throttle system.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily, is it? It's just making sure that you're remaining within the safe limitations for the engines for their maximum power ratings at those different stages of flight. But in terms of you needing to control your speed with your rate of climb, and then in cruise to make sure that you're not overspeeding the aircraft like I almost did yesterday, and then in the descent as well, that's still up to you as the pilot to control those elements.
That's right. The only thing it knows how to do is set takeoff thrust and set climb thrust. So it's kind of like a actually Boeing or Airbus auto throttle during those phases of flight, because they just target an N1 or an EPR during those flight phases. So if you go into climb on either type of plane, from 5,000 feet up to 30,000 feet, it's just going to target that and it's going to adjust it. So that's kind of the feature we're replicating there. But once you're in cruise or you're leveled off, you need to manage your throttles, and the green light is a great indicator of that. As soon as that light's gone, you're in control.
Awesome.
Okay, so that's the options. Any comments or questions about
No, I think we're good so far. It's great to see people coming in and saying hello. Lots of people are just generally chatting about things. We've even got a 727 flight engineer who's in here. So Clear for Chaos, who's experienced with these retro Boeings, is here as well. So shout out to you. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So what else did you want to show in the EFB companion app?
So I'll just kind of breeze through some other stuff here because I think the clock is ticking on us. So the flight engineer will use these flows throughout our flight. So we'll run each of these flows, but these are the 12 flows that prepare the plane, that basically complete the steps for each phase of flight here. And then at the bottom, we've got some automatic monitoring stuff, which I leave all of it on. The first one is fuel feed. Basically, it's just managing the fuel tanks and keeping the tanks relatively balanced, and adjusting cross feeds and pumps according to what needs to happen. Fuel temperature, same thing, but it's just managing actual fuel heat. The air source management, it keeps track of pressurization and what our air sources are, so pneumatic sources for the aircraft, and just make sure we've got the right amount of air. And we can talk about that a little bit in flight. I'll show you the engineer panel during flight, and we'll talk a little bit about the pneumatic system. And then lastly is the EPR bugs. And this is essentially saying the flight engineer is going to do what, is going to keep the bugs where they should be for every phase of flight. So it'll show max takeoff. It will show max continuous for climb. And then it will show the max cruise EPR values, and those get adjusted constantly based on things like pressure, altitude, and temperature. So that's how that works, and then you get a go around target when you're on approach. So that is automatically set, and you can always see. So that'll take us to the next tab we'll go to. We'll jump down to data cards. So if you look at the EPR tab here, you get, these are the current values based on current static air temp, current pressure, altitude. These are the bug values out of the charts. So we've taken all the charts from the manual and just put them into tables that the aircraft looks up, and that's how these bugs get set. If you don't have the automatic setting on, just so people know, if you want to do this yourself, I mean, you can come in here and just look it up and set the bug. But you can also just hit the set bugs button, and this whole data cards tab is full of set bugs buttons. So you can say, okay, we're going to target 1.6, or we want 1.82, whatever. So we'll reset them to takeoff, and we'll go back to the automatic setting.
Cool.
Cool. So what else do we want? I mean, the doors page is super self-explanatory. We don't need to talk about that. And the SIVA page or tab we'll go through in a little bit because we're going to import a routes. So with that said, I guess just briefly, it's a little bit hard to see, which I kind of noticed later, but there are these, I saw a lot of people miss these bugs yesterday. So, you know, this is your current takeoff calculation based on your current weights. It's all autofilled. The only thing you need to add here is wind if you want to put in a 10 knot headwind or something, and the numbers will recalculate. And based on our current weight and the current conditions, this is the minimum runway takeoff run area required. For flaps 14, our trim should be at 1.5 units. And so we can set both the bugs and the trim, which we'll do a little bit later in our process. Cool. Same, the reverse is true for landing, but you do have to enter your landing field elevation. This doesn't have any idea where you're landing. So if we're landing at Denver, we need to put 5,200 or 300 feet in here. We're landing at sea level, we can put the landing field elevation there. And then you can select flaps, either 40 or 50 are acceptable landing. If I'm lighter, I tend to steer towards 40. If it's heavier or short runway, I'm going to steer towards 50. The chart is just a 10 knot difference, so that's all that happens between those two.
Cool.
And then there's a runway condition thing here, and again, we've got to set bugs, so this will set the various speed bugs for you. So yeah, that's what happens in data cards here.
Yeah. Quick question from the chat. We just got so Sab fan in the chat said, I just noticed the navigator station. Are you going to make the LORAN receiver fully functional in a future update?
I don't think so, because there is no LORAN support. We'd have to build a whole, basically, LORAN infrastructure for where those are. So we talked about it, but decided against inventing a whole new navigation type in the sim for now.
Cool. There we go. Brilliant.
But we did, I'm pretty sure we did get them all animated and everything. So I think you can interact with it. It just is cool. Unplugged. In fact, the whole navigator station is essentially unplugged. We can look at it real quick.
There it is.
Yeah, so there are a few things. I mean, so these things will all work, right? Like the altimeter and can be set, and the ramp. These things are all hooked up, and these are hooked up to the VORs and ADF, so you can use those. But yeah, this system here is in op, and this is a third ADF radio. But the sim supports exactly 2 ADFs, and so we opted to leave the 2 on the pedestal next to the pilots as the ones that are hooked up. So, but yeah, the LORAN system is this whole piece here, and yeah, it would be cool to have that. Oh, I guess you can't interact with these. Man, that probably maybe will come in an update. I'm not sure. But yeah, so anyways, that's the LORAN. It doesn't do anything. Which is the same is true with the HF radios, right? I mean, they're here, but there's no HF radio in the sim. So,
okay, cool. And then one more question, and then I'm sure we can get ourselves rocking and rolling. Mustafa says, is there any way to do a ground start from a cart, so without the APU?
There isn't right now, though I think, don't quote me on this at all, but I think like air start carts are actually coming to the sim at some point, or at least I've heard some discussion about that. So cool. We may be able to add that later. But the way this plane is set up is that because it has the optional APU, which is right down here, that inops the so there's another way to start the plane. There are high pressure tanks that were originally installed, and so they'd be pre-charged, and then you could use them to blast air through to get an engine started, and that was typically in-opt with the addition of an APU, and that's what we've replicated here.
Cool.
So right now, the 2 ways to start engines are through crossbleed or through the APU. But yeah, it would be cool to add the start cart at some point. But we try to do things that are natively supported in the sim as much as we can.
Sure. Okay, I think we're ready to go and get this bird alive then, aren't we?
Okay, so let's, how are we doing on time, by the way?
Yeah, no, we're absolutely fine. Don't worry about time.
Okay.
We're all good. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm just going to breeze through. This is all in the manual too, but I'm just going to breeze through doing a flight plan and loading it in the SIVA. So I guess what we should do is let's start with just talking real kind of quickly going through the EFB. So what I'm doing is taking a route string from my favorite route string source. And we'll go into the flight planner here. And we'll just go right here to the route tab. I guess stop me if I'm going too fast, but I'm just going to kind of go through this as fast.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just click this button, which is enter route string. And I'm just going to paste this in here. So we're going JFK 5 departure, one of the transitions out to Ranger, and then we'll go direct basically to the Seg 6 arrival into Dulles, which is a non-RNAV arrival. So we'll transition from INS navigation to VOR navigation at that point. So we'll just click save here. So this is what our route looks like. So yeah, we'll take off on 31 left, and then we'll be VOR out to Ranger, and then really once we get into this range here, what we'll do is we'll just get the INS going, and we'll go out kind of direct to Ranger. We'll struggle through the 90-degree turn out here, and then we'll join. So basically, we'll have we'll put these three maybe into the SIVA, or maybe even just these two, and then we'll transition into using VORs. Or maybe I'll let the SIVA load the full arrival, but we'll still transition to VOR. So
cool.
Yeah, so that's the route, and then we'll land one right at Dulles, although I think we got maybe so anyways, we'll go into the route page here real quick, and we'll just make sure we've got everything set up the way we want. So we want a 31 left departure because that's what they're doing right now. And yeah, I guess.
I wonder if it would be the, yeah, I think it's got the D's, I think those two, the D6 and the score 6 of the RNAV departures that it would normally preference. Yeah. But even if we don't select the Kennedy 5 there, we can still do it non-RNAV with the Canarsie VOR as they would do, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we've got Ranger, Wilkes Booth, and SAG here, or Wilkes Barre and SAG here on our en route waypoints, and that's what we'll basically put into the INS. And then I'm just checking here. So we've got, actually, we'll do this. Yeah, so we actually don't want this. I don't think we want this either. There we go. Okay. That looks like how I want it to look. Okay, cool. And then our approach procedure, we don't really need to do this, but I will do it anyways. I'll just, fly the final on run right. Okay. And then I think our alternate is Richmond. Yep. Okay, cool. So that's our flight plan. And then we'll come in here to the performance tab. And I'm sort of doing this partly because I'm not sure anyone's ever really gone through this process on a stream before or a video before. So in this case, we're going to not have it automatically computed flight level because we're light. And I don't want to cruise at 45,000 feet. So we're going to put in flight level 260. And we don't really need to do anything else here. But I actually will target a 3-degree FPA. So there's no VNAV, so we just kind of want to use a geometric descent path. And then, so this is something that aircraft that are set up correctly with their CFG files get automatically these various schedules. So we've set this plane up with the schedules according to the manual. So today we'll just do a 280.78 climb.
Yeah.
And then we just don't want to cruise that fast because we're going to be in the 20s. So we'll just set this at 300.8. And then for our descent, again, we'll choose a 280.8. We'll try to be not ripping through the skies. And then we'll just put in a 240 knot holding speed. We won't need to hold today, but yeah. So that what this does is feeds the flight planner in the EFB information about our cruise so that it can automatically compute our fuel. And so what it does is it actually runs a simulation of the flight using the real flight model in the sim and computes that we'll use 13,151 pounds on this flight if we fly the schedules and at the altitudes and on the route that we've selected. So it's really handy. We do have to do a little bit of work here. So those numbers are going to change because we're going to put some payload in now. Oh, I keep doing that. So this is kind of annoying. I got to figure out a fix for this, but there's an on-off switch right here on the EFB.
Okay, and that can remove
it's
it.
really easy to accidentally
one to watch out
away.
For. There we go.
Yeah, so we'll put 110 passengers in, and let's take 20,000 pounds of cargo in the cargo area, and let's give ourselves. It's JFK. Let's give ourselves 2,500 pounds of taxi fuel.
And then that will automatically adapt to the figures that it's calculating for you on what you're going to require for the flight.
That's right. Yeah. So we'll put in, let's see, how much contingency fuel do we want? It's the Northeast Corridor. Let's take another 10,000 pounds of contingency fuel. Our alternates to Richmond is automatically computed, and our final reserve is automatically computed, though I'd probably take more than that as well. So we'll put in, let's say, 8,000 pounds. It's the 50s.
So a quick question in the chat whilst Chris is just setting this up. I can answer this one. So Nels asks, is there a BOAC livery? There's not a BOAC livery by default. The liveries that come with the aircraft are Air India, Alaska Airlines, the Boeing prototype livery, which lots of people are liking for those barrel rolls that we mentioned earlier. Korean Air, Malaysian Air System, Pan Am, Turkish Airlines, TWA, which is what we're in today, and then an all-plain white livery. So there you go. Those are the liveries that you get with the aircraft. So still a good selection. Cool. So payload and everything all configured through the EFB here.
Yep. So it all looks good. We've got a zero fuel weight. We've got 40,000 pounds of fuel on board, which we should keep doing that. Yeah. So we're all set. So we can just go to the load button here. We'll load our payload and our fuel, and that's going to set it up in the plane. I will check it in the aircraft app now.
Sure.
Because I want to make sure that our weight and balance is in good shape. It's one of the things you have to be a little bit careful of with the combi is that you can end up sometimes if you overload cargo, you can end up out of weight and balance. We're forward. We've got a forward center of gravity, but 18%. That's good. So yeah, we are all set. So that's all we have to do then. So the plane is loaded. We've got a flight plan. What we don't have is a flight plan in our INS. So I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm going to jump back to the 707 app. And I'm going to go ahead and get the cockpit prep checklist running because it takes a little bit. So we'll kind of let that run. And we'll deal with the INS real quick. So I've seen a bunch of people struggling with this online, so I just wanted to cover it. I normally, in fact, I should just make sure that I haven't screwed this up. I normally just let this thing do everything by itself. Okay, but I'm on quick. We're simulating drift. Okay, cool. So we have to do this ourselves. So the way this thing works is you can start in standby, but really you just need to go to a line. So the way this comes up, I've seen some concerns about the way it comes up, but the way the real unit works is that when you turn it on, it has whatever the last plane position was, whatever position it was at when it was turned off.
exists here. Now, because people send their plane all over the world in the sim, we simulated that by just grabbing the current position and filling this, because the plane would be where it was last parked, unless it was towed somewhere off. So you have two options here. Option A is you can just smash the insert button and you're done. And then we go into alignment, and we can watch this number count down. That's easy path, and would be the path if you were getting in a plane that had already been flown.
Sure.
But if you want to, you may ignore the insert button and just enter the coordinates. So I know some people were saying, well, I can't really enter my own coordinates. You absolutely can. We can put in anything we want. I mean, here, I'll actually make it more dramatic.
Yeah.
Right, I can put in anything I want. Engine start switches. Just not where we are. That's didn't quite do exactly what I expected it to, actually. I did this a minute ago. But anyways, I guess the point is you can insert your own. There is some error checking in the INS, and this might be a bug, because there's an error check on the position updating that won't let you position it too far, like unreasonably far from where you are. I'll have to check on that after, but we did look at this before the stream and it was working. So I think I can't put it on the other side of the world right now. But anyways, so yeah, so we'll let this thing, I'm just going to smash the insert. Well, actually, let me just start it over. So I'm just going to smash the insert button and let it start the align process. So.
And so if you do want to enter it in manually, whatever chart system you use, you can just go into the parking, tab. There are different charts for different providers, right? So if you have a look on the charts, you can find out, what stand you're on and then what the coordinates are to be able to know what coordinates you need to type in.
Yeah, that's right. So you could just come right in here and look at the... it'll be on one of these charts, right? It'll be parking chart, probably... no, that's not zoomed in enough. But yeah, there's a chart specifically, or it might be under miscellaneous, where it has all the locations.
So that's how you can find out the position that you're at. There you go. Airport.
There we go.
From the bottom. There we go.
There we go. Yep.
So you can kind of see that you've got all the different positions there for the different terminals. You've got all the different gate numbers and the positions. So you can have a look on the charts, and then you can enter that in for your initial position if you wanted to do it manually.
That's right. So on the INS, once we get into this ready nav situation here, and I'm on quick align, so it's gone quite fast, then I can just move it over to nav, and we're ready to enter our waypoints now, which can be manually done. I mean, I'm not going to do it now because we're actually going to run out of time. We haven't left yet. But you just essentially move this one at a time. And you insert the positions, and there's full detailed instructions on how to manually set it up in the manual. But what we'll do is instead jump to the 707 app, and we're going to mess with this a couple times. But first, I'm just going to import the route. And so this is going to give us a couple of waypoints. If we want to import our procedures, we can just reset this, and then we can get the full procedure, except I think I screwed up the flight plan somehow because I'm not getting quite everything I want here. So let's go back to the flight planner and make sure that we've got, when I changed runways, it lost our transition here. That's what happened.
There we go.
So there we go. Okay, cool. So now, that, by the way, is going to change our fuel. Maybe, probably not very much, though, right? So we'll ignore that.
Yeah, we've got lots of reserves.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go back and just do this, because those are the only two that well, what do you think, Matt? Should I bring in,
Yeah, I think it would be cool just to show it, because even if we switch to VOR to VOR navigation, we can at least show the INS ticking through the waypoint numbers. So you folks can see there that each of the waypoints are numbered as they're going to show in the INS, and you've got the coordinates and things as well. And there's even, you know, like fun little things that you can do. If you're totally lost and you don't know where you are and you're like, I think I'm close to, you know, waypoint number 6, you can go direct to that waypoint and it'll take you there via this. So you've got all sorts of fun features within this to make it more accessible to get into INS navigation, if that's what I'm understanding this section of the app is doing.
That's exactly right. So we've got our options up here. We've got these, most pages have this little info page too, so it'll kind of explain exactly what's going on the page. But you're exactly right. We have options here. But this just tells us which slot or which waypoint, you know, slot here is in each of these waypoints are. So if you have a really long flight plan, it will just cycle through them. We happen to be in a very unplanned, unique situation where we have exactly 9. But yeah, so that's how that will work. And it just, as you pass them, it just replaces the old one with a new one. So it can cycle back from 9 to 1. So anyways, that's all there is to getting the INS set up. And right now, so we're set from 0 to 1. And so that's basically a direct to this Ranger waypoint, which we'll use a little bit later.
So like 0 is the philosophy of like, that's your present position kind of thing.
That's right. That's
so if
right.
you wanted to go like direct to waypoint 4, you would go waypoint change 0 is in your present position 4 and then kind of insert. So that's the philosophy with that one, with then the numbered waypoints for the names of the different waypoints that you've got on your flight plan.
That's exactly right. And you can go from and to any number, right? So you could say, oh, I want to go straight from Seg to Piper. Yeah. And you could put, you know, 5 to 8 in here. So it's pretty, I mean, it's kind of a stupid, simple unit, right? It's just lat long positions. And it can find its way between any two in the system. But you're exactly right. 0 starts where we initialized our position. But yeah, it will
cool.
It will be able to be adjusted with a direct to. So anyways, anything else before I move on?
No, I think we're good to go and get this thing going. It looks like he's run through his 58 steps of preparation flow.
Right.
And again, another thing on this is that if you don't want the virtual flight engineer to do the flows, you can do all of the flows. And if you want to know individual things that the flight engineer is doing, or you want to slowly transition from using the virtual flight engineer to you doing everything, it's all covered in the manual. So everything is in there. I know we're going to be referring to it a lot today, but there's 230 pages. It's a complex aircraft. And there you go, Chris is showing here. All of it's also integrated into the checklist system in the sim as well.
That's right. So yeah, you can, I mean, they've got the different layers here. So standard's going to give you the most rudimentary stuff. You want to see everything, set it on expert, and you're going to get every single step. But Matt, like you said, it's all in the manual too, which depending on people's preferences, they may prefer that. But yeah, all the checklists are in here. And so you can, of course, turn off all the flight engineer stuff and do it all yourself. Yeah. So with that said, I just want to check one thing real quick. Okay. 710. And was that our intention?
I'm just going to say some welcomes to everybody who is coming in. We've got Saab fan saying is having to synchronize the generators is a nice attention to detail. Yeah, there's lots of attention to detail throughout this entire aircraft. South Rebel saying this is a cool aircraft. Good job. I've flown this already. Nice. How many of you folks have already flown this in the sim and given it a go? Let's see. I want to know from all of you folks, how many of you have already tried your first flights in the 707? Were any of you successful? Were any of you not successful? I need to know. I need to hear the stories about what you folks are thinking about this aircraft so far. Sean's already got 3 flights under his belt, so we're loving that. Ramjet says that he's been successful with his flights as well. So that's brilliant. Great. Well, hopefully you will learn some new cool things about the aircraft during the live stream today. Cool. So Chris is just editing the fuel and making sure that we're all set to go there. And then because the virtual flight engineer's completed all of his, I guess, pre-flight checks and everything like that, once we've got everything established there, is our first step, do we need to prep anything for the departure? Do we need to tune any VORs and those kind of things? And, altitude selectors or, weather, anything that we need to do there on the pilot's perspective to get us set up for a departure, I guess?
No, I mean, really, the first thing you have to do, other than setting up navigation, is to start the engine, which is basically a switch and a lever. So the flight engineer does everything there. I'm just double checking real quickly because I don't want to mislead anyone. I think just gonna adjust this ever so slightly. Yeah, there we go. So sometimes I find that what we sent via this page doesn't always reflect. I think it's a bug on the with that page with this EFB aircraft loading page. So I always just double check it with what this value says, and now they're matching, and so that's great. So now we'll get good calculations here. I just didn't want to end up in a weird situation. So we'll come back to actually setting the bugs in the trim in a minute. So I think we're kind of ready to go. And so we've run the before start, which means the APU is running, power and everything is all set up over here. External power has been disconnected. And there's a lot to do over here, but we're going to just kind of ignore it for now. So what I think we'll do is call for a pushback. Matt, you should feel free to be my co-pilot and tell me if I've forgotten something.
The only thing that I'm wondering at the moment is whether we needed to set up anything VOR-wise for the Canarsie departure. Did we need to tune the VOR, the VHF nav, or anything like that? Initial climb on the altitude, those kind of things as well. Just anything on those elements.
That's a smart call out. Good job.
Good CRM. That's what we can do in the 707.
Exactly.
You need it when it's a multi-crew aircraft, right?
Yeah. So do you want to, would you like to assist me by telling me what the frequency?
Absolutely, I can. So we're looking at the Canarsie VOR. I've got a Canarsie VOR frequency of 112.30. So you can see Chris typing that in there. So this is the radio navigation panel. You've got, don't be confused here on this panel. Some people can see that there's like a VHF nav and a VHF com, which are actually right next to each other. The VHF2 nav is on the right-hand side of the pedestal, which I got confused with yesterday. So if you wanted to tune 2 VORs or you wanted 1 VOR and an ILS, they're on the left-hand side of both of those individual panels, I guess. And then, yeah, there you go. So that's how you would tune them. So don't get mixed up between, I was like, why is my VOR not tuning? And actually it was on the com frequency. So there you go. So yeah, we've got 112.3 into there. And then, I mean, I guess an outbound, we're going to be heading to the Breezy Point climb, which is to Ranger. So the outbound radial we need out of Canarsie is a radial of 223. So you can see now Chris is going to set that up in the course screen here. He's going to get 223. And you can actually, you don't have to rely on the outer compass. If you can see right in the center of that, you can see that the individual course number is highlighted there. There you go. So 223 selected. So that's now going to mean that we can track that outbound radial outbound of Canarsie, right?
Perfect. You're going to make an excellent first officer.
I've not got my pilot's license, so if I make a mistake, then I'll blame that.
All right, so let's get our pushback going, and then we'll talk about flight director, autopilot, those kind of things as we taxi out. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and request pushback. Uh-oh, I have a
different call sign. That's fine. We can be Avianca and TWA.
We'll pretend. I should have checked that before we started. Sorry.
Perfect.
Okay, so now it's all going to start. And for me, since I have the realistic parking brake on, I just push my pedals in and the parking brake disconnects. And now that that's all happening, and I guess we'll just confirm it's all happening. Yeah, it looks like something's going on there. We will go ahead and get the engines going. So we'll do the before start, which we actually should have already done, honestly.
Before start checklist. Battery switch on.
So I'm having a look. So it looks like people are having a look at some like tours that they can do with the Henry. I'm not very good with my IATA codes that I can see there, but has anybody found any tour flights that you can do? TWA, so that's San Francisco, LAX, Honolulu. Is that Guam, Hong Kong? And then I don't know where DMK is. But yeah, there must be some cool tours that the 707 did back in the day. A really good website actually is, I think it's airlinetimetable.com. people have scanned in like the PDF, well not PDF, they've scanned in images of route maps from many airlines, so you can find all sorts of cool flights that you can do. Yeah, plenty that you'll be able to fly for the 707. I'm very sure of that one.
Set to low. Engine start levers.
Ah, there we go. My voice in the sky is saying that DMK is Bangkok. That must be the old one, VTBD. Yes,
Yep.
there we go. Bangkok Don Muang. There we go. Forgive my pronunciation. Thank you. There we go. Thank you, voice in the sky, and thank you, Henry, for confirming. Awesome. Cool. So the virtual flight engineer is running through his flight, and you can see there, folks, on the left-hand side of the screen. So you can actually see the individual elements that's being done. So turning off the galley power, making sure the start pressure is correct. And so you can see that visual indicator of all the steps that they're going through. And maybe this will help you if you wanted to take away the virtual flight engineer to kind of see those steps that he's going through and what each phase is going on. And then
that's right. Yeah, you can watch the steps and look at them here, and then kind of learn it from there.
Cool. So he's completed that. So are we ready for engine start?
And we're ready for engine start. And this is stupid simple. I mean, you can check the start pressure if you want, but the flight engineer just did, and he confirmed that we've got 30 psi, which is right on this gauge here. Actually greater than 30 psi. So what we'll do is just come flick one of these. Usually we start with engine 3.
Do you know if there's a reason why it was number 3?
I don't. I imagine there is.
Yeah. And so the virtual flight engineer will call out for the start levers and things now.
Yep. So he just called lever to start. So we just flick that up to the start lever here. I saw you struggle with this yesterday, Matt.
I don't know. I think this is a good one to call out. I think it's making mistakes like this. So in my experience of this, when I was flying this yesterday, I thought I'd moved it to idle, but I thought I moved it to start, but I actually moved it to idle. So I found just a slight scroll up with the mouse, or even with the mouse wheel, just one kind of cog turn moves it up to the next stage. So just be wary of that when you're starting these engines. You're looking initially to move it to that start position, and then I think once it's through, is it 50% N2? It goes to idle. Is that correct?
That's right, and you can actually ignore that because the flight engineer will do it in the after start checklist. So I usually just I literally do the two things. I flick the switch. Cool. And I move the lever to start. So we'll do number 4 next.
Yeah, Sean's already giving a preview of what people might be able to see on the takeoff with the black smoke contrails for the water injection. There's very cool. Saab's, while we're getting this second engine started, engine number 4 on the right-hand wing, Saab saying that he would love to see the performance tables actually put on the desk there, because that's what I think. Yeah, they're in the 727. So on the desk where the flight engineer sits, you can see all the performance tables for the aircraft. So I like that bit of feedback. That would be cool.
Yeah, it would be cool. We have to be cognizant of copyrights.
Sure.
So that actually was a limitation for us, and we might still reproduce some. It's sort of on a backlog for me is to try to make our own replicas of some of the tables and put them there. But yeah, we originally had thought we would take them straight from the manual, but there were some legal concerns about that.
That's understandable. Engine-wise, I don't know. We've not really discussed the engines, but it's the Pratt & Whitney. I think it's the JT3.
That's right.
D engines, because it was I think it's the JT8Ds that were the 727. My Boeing history and law is questionable, so somebody might need to correct me on that one. But we've got
they're
4
JT3D 3Bs or something
cool.
like that.
Lots of numbers and letters. There we go. Cool. But yeah, they don't take long to get started. You can see on that main instrument panel in front, you can see all the different gauges starting to come alive now. N1 takes a little bit to get itself going, but the EPR, the N2 there. And Chris, can you quickly describe, whilst we're getting these engines started, what happens if you make a mistake here? Is it possible to hot start the engines, in fact, in this?
It's not really possible to hot start them, but you can hung start, which you kind of experience. There's a few ways to screw it up, but most of them have to do with either not introducing fuel, not having the igniters on, or not having enough either bleed flow or pressure. Yeah, let me just trigger this one, and then we'll. So the pneumatic system is pretty deeply modeled, and it models all the manifolds and the sources and the consumers. And
15%.
so what can happen, and actually, I think I saw this happen on your stream too, Matt. Sorry, I'm not trying to call you out, but
No,
it's a good
it's
example.
fine.
Is you clicked, you said you clicked 2 starts at the same time, and that won't work because while the pneumatic pressure will basically match the well, how do I want to describe this? What happens is as soon as airflow, so the flow is computed and based on the physics and the orifice sizes of the various different orifices. And so if you've got a particular pressure delta at a manifold, that flow is going to normalize. And if you've opened 2 start valves, there's basically 2 places and twice as much air. And so now only half of that air is really going to each engine. And so you may have enough pressure, but you won't get enough flow to actually start moving the blades.
Right.
And so that's kind of what happens in that situation.
After start checklist.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's, I mean, just a quick, glimpse at the level of detail that's gone into this aircraft. It's not just on the face of things. The things that are behind the scenes going with the aircraft. If you try these things, pneumatic systems modeling there. You can see we've got 4 engines started, so that's a really great start. And now the virtual flight engineers doing their after start flow. So Sun King asked, is there a full passenger 707-320C planned? Or are you just going to stick with this conversion model with the combi version?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now I am not aware of any plans to do different models. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting idea to look at adjusting those. But right now, yeah, we have just the combi model balanced kind of between passengers and cargo.
Awesome. And then just a general question whilst Chris is getting us set up for taxi here. Howie asks, if you are going to start with airliners, should you pick one and learn it inside and out before doing others? I mean, my personal answer to that is, I don't necessarily know if you think you need to learn an aircraft inside and out. I think you should, if you're looking to get into airliners, you should pick one and stick with it until you can do, kind of what we're doing today, the normal flows, and do an A to B flight with it. But you don't necessarily need to learn, the in-depth of the pneumatic system like we just kind of quickly discussed. Do what you think is going to find fun for you in the simulator, because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing here, is that you're having fun. So yeah, I think you should look at it from a perspective of, being able to operate those normal procedures from A to B. But then if you wanted to try something else and spice it up, that's personally my recommendation. Chris, I don't know if you've got any kind of advice for people who are just getting into airliner flying for the first time in the sim.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I agree with your advice. Yeah, I agree.
Cool. There we go. I'm seeing lots of people who are asking about paint kits as well, folks. We know this is one that lots of people are asking for. We're aware of it. As far as I'm aware, there is an all-white paint that comes with it, and I'm actually seeing already some people in the community kind of taking that, and I think there was somebody on the MSFS forums who's already painting up a Qantas livery and things. So Chris, I don't know if you can answer that about a paint kit. We know that it's something that commonly gets asked with some of the default aircraft in the sim, and if you can speak on that one, but no worries if you can't.
I know that we discussed with AnyBuild specifically making an all-white livery to help out that process, but I'm not aware specifically of a paint kit that they've made available.
Cool. There we go. Okay, folks. So hopefully that white livery that does come with the aircraft is going to help you folks who are interested in repainting. As I say, I saw somebody on the forums, maybe 8 hours ago who was already working on a Qantas livery. So keep an eye out, and then hopefully you'll be able to see some cool new liveries coming. But as we mentioned earlier on, there's a selection of great liveries that come with the aircraft to get you started with it, so that you can do lots of those kind of retro real-world flights that I know people are very excited to do as well. Daryl also asked, will it come to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020? As far as I'm aware right now, this is a 2024 exclusive aircraft. Is that correct, Chris?
That's right. There are a lot of systems in this aircraft, including the EFB integration, that are dependent on sort of core features of 2024. So that's not to say that it won't be it won't be backported, but I don't have any information about that right now.
Cool. There we go. So brilliant. Right. Well, we're taxiing. We're on our way out. As we've mentioned, we're on a 3-1 left departure today. So that runway, the threshold for that is kind of just located off our 10 o'clock on the nose, I guess, at the moment. So it should be a nice quick taxi. Chris, is there anything specific? You know, I know in some of the larger airliners, when you're doing those big swinging 90-degree turns, the nose wheel can be behind where the pilot sits or anything. Is there anything that you're aware of, you know, just in the taxi phase of the aircraft that people have got to be aware with? You know, the engine's powerful enough that it can roll quite nicely on idle power, or, you know, anything specific for the taxi phase whilst we're in that right now?
Yeah, I think light, and in cooler and lower altitude conditions, you will find that the plane will roll. If you're heavy at Denver, it won't. But it's, yeah, so there is that. You know, the plane feels heavy and flies like a heavy, and behaves in a lot of ways like a heavy aircraft, but it isn't actually that much larger than like a Max 10.
Yeah.
Or like even a 737-900. It's a little bit longer, maybe the length of like a 321, but the wings are, I think the wing area is
it's ginormous.
I don't have the exact statistics, but I gotta believe it's like 50% greater than the 737. So
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, sure, it's long, so you do want to make sure that you're kind of steering past the yellow center line. But yeah, it's
yeah. So the nose wheel's behind the pilot.
Intimidating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Looking from the wings.
It's how the thing for me is like when I had a look at a wing view, it's how far, like, you know, the pods 2 and 3 on each wing are from the fuselage. It just feels absolutely ginormous, the size of the wing there. Yeah, it's intimidating, as you say.
All right, so there were a couple things I wanted to talk about during taxi, but this is a short taxi, so let me just make sure I haven't missed anything. Okay, a couple things I wanted to mention. One is some people have commented about the jet bridge and stair situation. So because the plane boards from this back door, you're really best off not parking at a gate with a jet bridge because it will not connect to the front door. That's because of the configuration of the aircraft. You don't board through the front door except for crew.
Sure.
So let's see what else. We did all that. I also wanted to mention the range when we were talking about the fuel planning. I know this has come up, but this is one of those planes where, yeah, if you fill it to sort of max payload, right? So you get a kind of a max zero fuel weight, you will have your range limited to under 3,000 nautical miles. But if you put a typical passenger load in it, the fuel tanks are large enough to accommodate flights of kind of up to 5,000 miles. So it definitely was operated on oceanic routes, and it absolutely can do that. You just can't max out, you know, the zero fuel weight with cargo and passengers, and then you won't have. If you try to fill the tanks, you'll go over max takeoff weight, and so that it's actually a takeoff weight limitation. Okay, so we're sort of not doing a great job of following good CRM here. But the first thing I want to do is just go to my data cards now and actually set my takeoff bugs. So I do that, and we get the bugs set, and we'll go ahead and set trim, which I actually think the flight engineer did already in the taxi checklist. Just make sure. So yeah, we're in a good spot there. We got 2.1, 2.2, okay, 2.3 units. So, and then the dump time here is just like if we were really heavy, how long would it take us to dump to our max landing rate? That's what that computes.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were really laden with fuel for a flight across the pond, you might have to dump for 60 minutes before. And the dump panel works, and it's right here.
Nice.
Anyways. Okay, so, Matt, what have we forgotten for our takeoff here?
So we need to get the virtual flight engineer to do his before takeoff checks to make sure him in the back seat is happy. And then the only other thing I would potentially question is whether we would need to look at anything. I mean, you know, when I was flying this yesterday, I had the flight director set up just to give myself like an initial pitch reference or anything? Is there anything we need to do there? Because I think that's something we'll go into when we get into autopilot, but the autopilot and the flight director are split in this aircraft, aren't they?
Yeah. So we can talk about that first here. I'll put the parking brake on. I'm not getting a signal.
Yeah,
from
I
our
just thought that as well.
VOR,
Yeah, the 112.3 is not showing at the moment.
So I'm not sure
Let's see if there's another one that might work. We could even take up a backup one that may. I wonder if that's because is the Canarsie. I wonder if it's not actually a VOR DME, and maybe that's why we're not picking it up. Oh, it is a VOR DME frequency. Alternatively, we could look at another, VOR that we might be able to pick up that's in the area. So the Robbinsville VOR is 113.8. So you may be able to pick up something there. RBV, I think that is.
Yeah.
That's the VOR TACAN frequency, I think.
Okay. Well, we'll have to come back.
If
to
not,
that in a minute,
yeah, if not, we
guess.
can always just make that. I guess, if not, we can always make that initial left-hand turn straight away after departure, and use heading select to then get us on that 223, and then go straight into INS navigation if we need to.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll probably decide to do here. I'm not sure what's going on there, but we'll anyways be navigating with VORs down our arrival procedure. So
Sure.
I apologize that the sun is kind of glaring, but I want to talk about these for a minute. So this upper panel here, the autopilot controller, the main switch is on and off. So I've seen a number of people struggling with not being able to set trim on the ground. And at least in some of those cases, I've seen that they've accidentally flipped the autopilot on. So just be careful of that. But yeah, so this thing is electromagnetic. So all the switches other than the on-off switch, but actually even the on-off switch, are spring-loaded. And when it's powered and when appropriate, it'll stay. So like you'll see, for example, if we try to do that, it's going to click back.
Yeah.
That's because it's not on. So there's no power. And so it's just going to spring back to the previous position. So yeah, that's kind of how the panel works. You have to turn it on first, which will put it in a pitch, hold, and roll mode. And then roll will either be controlled by this knob or by whatever mode you're in. So yeah, that's that. And then yes, the flight directors each have their own computer. So all three are separate computers, guidance computers, and they can all be set to different things. So it's actually tedious and confusing, but it's also can be helpful in some cases.
Yeah.
For example, if you're following the INS in nav mode, you can preset your flight director onto VOR loc, and then you kind of know when you're going to want to begin the turn to sort of transition between the two. So there are some ways to make use of it. The other thing is vertical modes. It is a little tedious. The only vertical mode is pitch, other than the glide slope and glide path modes.
Yeah.
So you can only set a pitch target. But yeah, for takeoff, so what we'll do for now is we'll just go into heading select, and we'll set about a 12-degree pitch up on our flight director. And then our heading is, I've got it dialed in at 310. Maybe you can tell me exactly what the runway heading is, but either way, we'll just figure it out.
Yeah, I think that should be fine. Let me double check to make sure I know what the runway heading is. So a 314, if we're going to be pedantic about things, would be exactly that. But
let's be pedantic.
Let's be pedantic. Why not? Why not?
Yeah. Okay. There we go. All right. So with all that said, let's run. What have I missed, Copilot? Anything?
I would say no, just the before flight things, and I would say we're fine. We've got the initial climb set. We've got the takeoff bug set.
We didn't do one thing.
Pressurization.
It doesn't really matter, actually, the way that this system works. But we'll go ahead and dial it in anyways. So the thing with the pressurization system is it will always try to keep an 8.6 psi delta anyways. So even if you don't turn this up, it will sort of max out at that in any event. But yeah, it's good to do it.
Cool.
Okay, so with that said, let's run before start. I'm sorry, let's run before takeoff. and let's actually take off.
Brilliant. Yeah, 777 says there's not even a vertical speed. No, well, I mean, there's a vertical speed indicator, so I guess you do use you use the pitch command wheel to control the VSI. That's my theory of how you control the pitch in the aircraft.
That's right, and you get a bit of a sense for that after flying the plane for a bit. Yeah. Each click, each turn of the knob, so like, you know, one scroll is about 0.2 degrees, so it's 5 clicks per degree.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is, you just kind of figure it out by when you turn it on, you know your pitch, and then you just have to kind of adjust it to get what you want. You can also, you know, fly the plane into the pitch you want, and then turn on the autopilot from there, and it will then just capture that pitch. So, anyways, okay. All right, so we've got our flight engineer controlling the thrust. We've run our before takeoff flow. You'll note the flight engineer's done everything, like set our altimeters. The whole thing is just done for us, so we can kind of be a little bit lazy here. But yeah, so we're going to take off, and we're going to climb out. I've set an initial altitude of 5,000, if that works for you, Matt.
Yeah, that's correct as per the departure as well, so that's perfect.
Okay. Here we go.
Here we go. Right, enjoy the takeoff, everybody.
So the spool time is pretty low. You know, it takes a long time to spool up.
But once it gets going, it gets going.
Yeah.
Takeoff powers. 80 knots. V1. Rotate.
Okay, so there we are.
Oh, there we got our VOR
Ah, there we
now.
go. Yeah, the VOR's come straight alive now, so that's perfect. And so you can see, even with, you know, a good 15 degrees of pitch, the speed goes pretty quickly when you're light, doesn't it? And
Yeah, so the trim setting is generally set for you to maintain like V2 plus 20 without much input, which works pretty well. But yeah, when you're light like this, you're just gonna accumulate a tremendous amount of speed and vertical speed quickly. All right, so we'll start our left turn here. And so when we got to 1,500 feet, our flight engineer announced and pulled back to climb power. So we'll begin an acceleration here. And then are we already on our outbound course?
No, so we're not on our outbound course yet. It's a few little miles, so it'll be quick. So you might need to make quite a turn here and actually intercept from the right. I think you might have gone through it. So the Canarsie VOR's really close off the threshold of 3-1 left there. So I guess make that kind of turn towards maybe 220 degrees, 210 degrees exactly as you're doing now, and then we can pick it up and go from there. And then we can fly outbound quite nicely.
All right, so our flight engineer called us 1,000 to go. He also called our flaps, so we're going to put our flaps up. Oops, I'm doing a bad job of intercepting, aren't I?
This is where the 707, when there's lots of things going on, and you've got initial climb altitude and things there. You can see we're just about a mile over it, and I'm sure we'll speak about cone of confusion and all of those things with VORs later and stuff. But I think as long as we're, like somewhat just tracking outbound on this radial here, roughly. Yeah, it was about 223, I think, was the course that we wanted. So as long as we're kind of heading in that direction, we're going the right way.
Yeah, so I'm going to now we're left, so I'm going to let it kind of intercept here. And now I'm almost blowing through our altitude. It's tough because I need to change my flight director mode.
Yeah.
But I can't right now. But anyways, I think we're in pretty good shape, and so I'm going to go ahead and flip this autopilot on, and I'm going to go ahead and hit out hold, and I'm also going to go into low VOR mode.
Yeah.
And now I can have a little bit of breathing room and set this up. But I've also ruined everything because we've accelerated too fast. So you're seeing a live demonstration of someone who's I'm not good at talking through it and doing it at the same time. So
that's fine.
anyways.
I can always talk through things as you're doing them and kind of thing as well if we need to. There's a lot going on here. So see, Chris is going to be moving the speed bug there to 250 knots. So that's what we'll target below 10,000 feet. And then he's going to run that virtual flight engineer with the after takeoff flow, moving the landing gear from that up position to the off position. And that's an important thing that's run in Boeing philosophy right the way through to the 747. Well, the 400 anyway, maybe not the 8. But that's to depressurize the landing gear, if I'm not mistaken. Otherwise, if you leave it in the up position and you leave the hydraulics, is it the hydraulic system, the pressurized for the landing gear, you can actually, fail to be able to put the landing gear down after your flight. So that's why the off position exists. Somebody can correct me on the logic there. So it looks like we're now, climbing outbound on that radial from the Canarsie VOR. The next thing to do, as you can see Chris is doing at the moment, we're going to wind up that altitude now. We're looking for, I think you said 26,000 was our cruising altitude, so then we can continue with the climb. Yeah, I remember that from the start. So 26,000 into there. So now how would we, continue that climb? If we've leveled off at 5,000 feet here, what would be our next steps to continue the climb?
Yeah, so let's do a couple things here. I just want to see real quick how we're doing in terms of distance to that first waypoint. And it looks like we're 3 minutes and 14 nautical miles. So we've got a little bit of time until we're going to turn onto our INS course. What I'm going to do is two things here. The first thing I'm going to do is set my flight director to nav. Now that's not going to change where the plane is going, but it is going to change the depiction of what's on here.
Sure.
And then I'm going to set a climb pitch, but again, this is just for visual reference, as it's kind of an indicator to me. And then I'm also going to just change on the SEVA that we want to go from 1 to 2.
Yeah.
And so now, if I go here to the cross track, I can kind of see that I'm 10 miles right, of course. Tried to describe it, but yeah, we have to make a right 90-degree turn. So we're going to kind of keep an eye on this and start our turn. But let's do as you suggested, which is let's get a climb going. So basically, all I'm going to do is turn off outhold, and then I'm going to start pitching the aircraft up. So I'm going to roll this wheel back, and I'm going to start with 1 degree above where we are, and that's going to produce maybe 500 feet a minute or so. And I'm just going to keep pulling that back until we get to a number we want to be at.
Yeah.
And now the flight engineer is going to say, oh, we're climbing. And now he's going to go ahead and put that thrust to climb.
Yeah.
And then what we'll do is just watch our airspeed. And as we get to the 250 we want to climb at, we're just going to do our best to get the pitch set that we can maintain our speed there while we're on climb power.
And when you're light, it does a good rate here. You can see on the vertical speed indicator on that main panel, so we're at 250 knots at the moment, and we're climbing at about 3,000 feet per minute. So that's something just to watch out for with this, is that you can catch yourself off guard, especially if you've got those low initial altitudes on the departure that you need to look out for. You can very easily shoot through altitudes or get caught off guard. That's where the altitude pre-selector is so good. Because of how powerful this aircraft is. So, we're just at 250 knots perfectly at the moment. Looks like we're going through about 7,500 feet at 3,000 feet per minute. So when you're light, got to watch out for it. And now you can see Chris has engaged that right-hand turn. And this switch is interesting. The one that you just hovered over there, that's an interesting switch that I think lots of people might get confused with. But it's actually one of the most essential switches in the flight deck.
Yeah, so this switch changes the HSI from the navigator to VOR loc. And so I've just started that turn manually so we can get a nice intercept here. And now I'll just pop the autopilot into nav mode and let it finish this intercept. So there's two kind of important switches particularly on the captain's side. This switch chooses which nav radio is depicted on the HSI and the ADI. So normal means captain side is getting nav 1, co-pilot side will get nav 2. If you switch this switch to 1, nothing changes for the captain because the captain's going to get nav 1. But if we switch this to 2, which won't have any effect on us right now, but the HSI will now depict the nav 2 radio. So it's a quick, easy way if you've got 2 nav radios tuned and you're sort of going on an airway or something between one VOR and another, and you just want to be able to switch without having to tune. You can pre-tune them and then just use this switch, and it'll switch what's depicted there. Of course, this has no effect while we're in this nav mode here, which so this switch is basically long-range navigator is nav, and local VOR is going to be the radios.
And so it wouldn't matter whether you were using the INS or the Garmin 530 system or the UNS model. If you want to be following the navigation, that particular, navigation method that you've chosen, having that switch in the nav position facing up is how you would follow that. And then if you were, establishing on the ILS or doing a non-RNAV departure, just like we've done there with the Canarsie climb, then it's going to be that bottom option. So that's a really important switch. It's a tiny switch on the main instrument panel, but it's a really important one to make sure that you're tracking your navigation correctly in the 707.
That's right. Cool. You might have noticed I turned off the landing lights. But one of the things you have to be careful of is, unlike on an Airbus or really a Boeing also, if it has extendable lights, you don't just flip the switch to retract. When you put this into retract, it will then run the retract motors. You need to wait 5 to 10 seconds, then you can flip them back on off. Sure. And if you go up to extend, then they'll extend back out. Yeah. The flight engineer will deploy them, but he won't retract them because that's really pilot decision. So. So anyways, we are climbing out. I'm pitching down a little bit so we can get a little bit of acceleration going. We're right on track here. We have no cross track, so we can look at our desired track is 313. And then I mostly like the distance and time. So our next waypoint is 72 nautical miles, 13.4 minutes. We'll accelerate up to 280, which I think was our planned climb speed. That was our planned
climb speed, yeah.
No.
And then Sean's pointed this out. Did the virtual flight engineer do his after takeoff flow? We've already done some of those items with the. He did. There we go.
Yeah. So I ran the after takeoff flow while we were on that first leg.
There we go.
To get the gear into the off position and get the turbo compressors running and things again. So the next flow will be the descent prep.
Perfect. So there we go. So, and this is what we say. So even though we spoke about this before departure, and we know that there's a lot of information coming your way. And there was a good question from Bugs20 in the chat. Lots of you, there's lots of information about this aircraft. We've spoken about the manual, the checklists in the sim as well. But this VOD, so this VOD from this live stream is going to go onto the MSFS official YouTube channel after this live stream. So if you folks want to catch up with anything, you want to go back and listen to anything again, if you didn't quite catch it, we're going to make sure that that's available on our YouTube channel as well, so you can catch things in there, and you can see Chris's amazing landing into Washington Dulles on replay as many times as you like. That's right, Chris, yeah?
Absolutely. No floats.
No floats. Well, I mean, I found it a pleasure to fly yesterday when I gave it my first flight into San Francisco. It is a heavy aircraft. You were speaking about the degrees of flaps, which I'm sure we'll go through. 40 to 50 degrees of flap. That's that's quite a lot of drag on this aircraft. But it felt really nice. It felt heavy, but it felt smooth, which I guess is what you were aiming for with the flight model for this aircraft.
Yeah, and it requires, one of the things that I wanted to capture the feel of, and I think the team wanted to capture the feel of, the team that worked on the flight model, was to really give it that sort of, I'm controlling a plane that has, flying control surfaces with aluminum or steel cable. I'm not sure what it was made of, but there's a feeling that kind of goes along with that is deeply different from flying a small GA aircraft or flying a hydraulically boosted more modern aircraft or even a fly-by-wire aircraft. So yeah, I mean it's just a different feel, and we really tried to get that feel while also making the aircraft controllable. So
Sure.
I don't know. I'm pretty happy with it. I've been hand flying it quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'll hand fly the approach at least. Yeah,
I guess...
I'm usually pretty good at hand flying it because my flying in the real world has been almost all without an autopilot. But it is hard to do.
Okay,
on
so that
I'm
helps.
intimidated by the stream. So
No, it will be fine.
watching.
It will be fine. There's lots of things that's going to. I mean, this is I guess more of the chill phase at the moment. You know, the virtual flight engineer, he's controlling the maximum climb speeds and everything. You can see that we're climbing at a good rate and everything. So things are kind of chilling out. But with the nature of this being a short flight, the descent preparation and everything is gonna happen pretty quick. The only other thing that I would mention that right now in my virtual first officer phase is just setting the standard altimeter setting. We've climbed through that transition altitude now. And so making sure that we're on, I guess, 29902 it is in the US, right, which it's already done for us. So you can see that that's there. And then this is something that's cool. So just above the altitude indicator there, it's just shone up in red. Chris, do you want to speak a little bit about this panel here? Because
Sure.
you can see we've got nav in green twice there and then altitude in red. So how does this panel work?
Yeah, so just real quickly when we level off here, so the flight engineer's final act will be to set max cruise thrust, and then the light goes off.
And then the light goes off.
We're on our own now.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to let the plane accelerate a little bit, but not too much, and then we're going to pull some thrust back. But yeah, so these are the flight director and autopilot enunciators. They're duplicated on both sides. Obviously, there's nothing on this one because we haven't set up the first officer's flight director. But yeah, so the flight director's in nav mode and not in any other mode, and it's still set to a 5-degree nose up pitch.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna real quickly pull my thrust back. I really overdid it there. Sorry, guys.
It may have jolted a few glasses of nice drink in the cabin, but nothing more, I'm sure.
All right, so I'm gonna gamble on maybe 1.55, and we're gonna see how that plays out.
Yeah, I found like at in light conditions, you know, I think I was about 35,000 feet or so. Aiming for around about 1.6 EPA gives you a great speed of 0.84. So you can see on that, you know, on the right hand side of the screen, this is what you're going to be aiming for, to set that climb power across the board at a particular EPA display. Depending on how many thrust levers you've got, you might, you know, need to set them individually, or if you've just got one thrust lever on your hardware at home, you know, you can just set the one and look for that EPA level. But it's all really just gauging what works well for you, depending on how fast you want to fly and push this thing. You know, you can really go for it with the thrust there.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it will fly at Mach 0.85 happily. But we don't really want to do that at 26,000 feet. So we'll see it. We just try to live here in our 300 knot range, and we're 36 miles from somewhere. Yeah. Okay. So we're actually going to join the procedure in the arrival procedure in 5 minutes. So we should think about discussing that. But yeah, it's just quickly. So I set out hold on the flight director. All this does is it just also locks in the current altitude on the flight director. So if you were hand flying, it would give you vertical guidance on the flight director for out hold. So right now I've got them all mirrored up. We're in nav, we're tracking nav, which is green, and we've got alt in green, so we're tracking that. Red means selected but not active, not actively tracking, and it kind of means slightly different things for different modes. In nav mode, it would only appear that way if you had invalid data coming from the navigator. For more loc mode, it could mean there is no, you're not tuned correctly, or you're, you know, something along those lines. For alt, it lights up when it starts the capture, and it's basically just a quick indication to the pilot that the pre-selector is grabbing the altitude that's been selected. And so that's just a quick sort of, it happens in the last few hundred feet only, and that's what that is indicating.
Cool. So, I mean, if you'd like for me to, would you like me to run some maths on our descent planning? Because I think that's something that we're going to need to cover.
That'd be
Okay,
great.
so let's run through this. Basic maths. I know we're all not. I hated maths at school. Yes, it's maths because I'm from England. So I'm allowed to say it with the S. I'll say math for all of you. So we're at 26,000 feet. For the arrival that we're doing today, we're doing the Selinsgrove, the SEG-6 arrival into Washington Dulles. That has us at a waypoint at hyper of being 8,000 feet. That's our aiming point for that one there. So we need to get from 26,000 feet to 8,000 feet. So the altitude difference between those two altitudes is 18,000 feet. So what we would do to work out how many miles we would need for that is to times 18, which is the gap, by 3. That gives us 54. So roughly 54 nautical miles before the waypoint hyper is what we would need. I don't know about you, Chris. I usually like to round it up and give ourselves an extra few miles, especially with an aircraft like the 707 because it's quite slippery, meaning that it struggles to slow down. So, I mean, what would you say, about 60 nautical miles, 65 nautical miles before the waypoint hyper is what I would say for our top of descent?
Yeah, I mean, you did it really well yesterday.
That was luck. I'm not going to say that was
no,
skill.
but
I think that was luck.
The math you did, the maths you did, they were right. They were right on. You made the right choice of getting slow and low earlier, and that's important in this plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to see, do we have any mandatory restraint?
No, there's. Oh yeah, it's only hyper expect
like
to 8,000.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's whether we wanted to be. We could, I guess, because if we're going to be landing northerly today as well, we're going to have quite a long downwind leg, are we? So I guess we could even, if you wanted to, we could ignore the expect 8,000 at hyper, give ourselves just a little bit more time. But I don't know. The next VOR that I've got after hyper to the south is Frederick. 11685 down there. There you go. So
right.
After that, we would be vectored, on the downwind leg in for the ILS approach if we're landing northerly.
So what do you think? Do we want to leave? The INS running the show until Frederick?
Yeah, I think we can do, because we program, and this is one thing that you can do, folks, as Chris pointed out. You can program the INS to put in the arrival routing for you. If we wanted to, we could do this VOR to VOR, and we can show that. But you can also leave the aircraft to let the INS do its travel. So, yeah, I guess for now, whilst we've got quite a few things going, we're planning the arrival, we're making sure everything's set. We wanted to talk through the data cards for the arrival. Maybe we could just leave the INS to do its thing whilst we work out exactly when we want to start our descent, if that works for you.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Cool. So, is there a gate? I mean, what kind of altitude do you think we should be at Frederick? I guess we ignore the 8,000 at hyper, but I don't know, would maybe 10,000 to then allow ourselves to slow down, through 250 knots on the downwind leg? Do you think that would work nicely?
Yeah, I think maybe we should just push the 8,000 to Frederick.
Yeah.
I think that's, and then
cool.
We can, from Frederick, descend down to whatever our final approach.
So we're going to need roughly about, if we were going to get 8,000 at hyper, we would need about 60 miles before hyper to get there. Yep. So if I look at how far out that is from Selinsgrove, which is SEG, which is where we join the arrival. Is that correct? How many miles have we got? We've got 31, 43.
Yeah, so right now we're to Diano from Rogue's Bar. And
perfect.
So we've got 33 to run, essentially, to Selinsgrove.
Yeah. And then from there, if we're going to need... So I always like to look back. This is how I plan the descent. So if we say that we've got to be 8,000 feet at hyper, we need to go backward on the chart. So, if we say we need 60 miles. So we've got 24 miles to, is it Pritzel? I think that is.
Yep.
So we've got 24 miles there. So what does that put us at? So 60 minus 24, that's going to be about 36 miles from Pritzel, if my math is correct. Then to go back to Lego, it's another 13 miles, is that? So that's another 23 miles before Lego, I would say. And then you can see from Selinsgrove to Lego, it's about 31 miles is what I've got. So approximately just after leaving Selinsgrove, somewhere midway between Selinsgrove and Lego would be a good point for the descent, I think is what I've calculated.
Yeah, that looks right to me too.
Cool.
That'll put us 24, 27, 37, 68. That Selling Grove is going to be 68 nautical miles before hyper. So yeah. So we should I think when we get to Selling Grove, we should begin a descent to 8,000.
Give yourself more time because if we want to slow down and everything.
Yeah,
perfect.
That's right.
Cool.
Okay.
Is there anything, again, chat, if you've got any questions about the 707, about its development, what went on behind the scenes, any kind of features that you'd like Chris to showcase or anything, now is the time, because there's going to be lots in the arrival. If not, we can carry on as we are. Chris can show some other cool things off with the aircraft if you just want to generally see us run through things. But if you guys have got any questions about the development of the 707, now is a great time to ask them whilst we've just got a little bit of time in the cruise on the flight. But yeah, Chris, in the meantime, if there's anything else you wanted to showcase specifically, feel free to do so.
Yeah. So I wonder what. Oh, we didn't satisfy our passengers. So
they can smoke as well, of course. Yeah.
I'll just talk through a few things. One, I really meant to show this, but we'll look at it on landing. The compass is a cool feature, and one of our other founders, Matt, worked on this. You guys know Matt from fame of other planes in the past, and he's actively working the Praetor right now. But he stepped away from that to help do the detailed physics animation of the compass, so it sort of jiggles all around. It's one of my favorite features in the plane, actually. Quickly on the anti-ice system, just so people understand how it works. So it is simulated to require certain temperatures. So it doesn't work like you just turn it on and it will work. You need to be at the right duct temperatures, and so it won't work and it won't run the Sims de-icing if you're like idle and descending. So if you're in an idle descent, you will not get de-icing. So be aware of that.
Right.
What else should we talk about?
777 driver in the chat asked, can we discuss the process of the collaboration between Working Title and IndyBuilds? So what was each team responsible for this aircraft?
Sure. IndyBuilds did the modeling, and they did the work and coordinated the audio.
Awesome. There we go.
Yeah, so all the interior, exterior modeling, deliveries was all done by IndyBuilds, and along with the audio. Yeah.
Awesome. And then I guess a question from my behalf. For those of you who don't know, we've actually got a written article that Chris helped with, giving a bit of behind the scenes look at this aircraft in written format that we'll put on the MSFS website tomorrow. But Chris, throughout your development of this aircraft and learning more things about the 707, was there anything that particularly intrigued you systems wise, or anything that you found when researching the 707 as an aircraft itself that you really wanted to capture and make sure that simmers could enjoy in the sim?
I would say mostly what I wanted to capture was the experience of operating a totally manual aircraft, and I wanted everything to work in it. I mean, I saw the weather radar, I wanted it all to work. And actually, I'll say this, this is not answering your question at all, but this is one of the first radars in the sim that has functional tilt, so people should enjoy that.
Yeah.
I know it's been a long wished for, and it's coming it's in SU6 for the G3000s as well. But yeah, this radar has got tilt on it.
Yeah, the weather radar does function, doesn't it? It does. You can actually see weather returns come up on the radar. That's not just there for show.
Oh yeah, but I mean the vertical tilt
and
is
actually
is working now. So if you're flying above the storms and you've got it on 0 degrees and you're sitting here with half a degree of pitch up, you will see nothing. And if you turn this down into the clouds, you will get returns if there's weather. I think there's just not much going on right now.
Sure, it's chill.
But yeah, so to answer the question, I said we would talk about this, and so we'll take a minute. So these are the turbo compressors. So the way the engines work is you'll see these little holes above these engines. And you'll see that there isn't one on engine number 1. So these are the pneumatic air source for this aircraft. And it's really interesting to me, excuse me, because it's in some ways like the foreshadowing of the 787. So this plane does not rely on bleed air you can use bleed air for pneumatic pressure, so pressurization and air conditioning and heating.
Sure.
But that is not the primary source. So these turbo compressors, they get a little bit of bleed air out of the second stage or the high pressure core, and it turns a turbofan like a turbocharger is essentially how it works, really, or like a supercharger, and that drives this turbine in that little hole, and that's where the air comes in. And this system automatically governs the RPM of those to deliver a certain amount of pressure. And so, for example, we can, and the flight engineer is controlling that these are on right now, but we can override him. So let's just, shut him down. And you're going to see, one, we've just lost, so this inches of water measures duct pressure in the cabin. So we've just killed, the flight engineer decided that this was an emergency situation since we were losing our pressure, and so he turned one of them back on, and he will turn the other ones back on too. But as we turn these on and start them, we're going to see our sort of outside of the pack duct pressure increase, but also our inches of water. We want to be in this green range to get appropriate circulation, and please remember that everyone is smoking back there, so we want good circulation. So anyways, yeah, I mean, but you can sub in bleeds for the turbo compressors. The APU won't run at this altitude, but that also contributes. So in any case, like if you're manually controlling cabin pressure and air conditioning, so it's all on auto right now. So all these valves are controlled automatically. You can take complete control of this entire panel. But yeah, the turbo compressors are cool. They're just a cool addition, and I say that because, of course, the 787 doesn't use bleed air. It has compressors. They're just electrically driven.
Sure.
But it's in a lot of ways exactly the same concept. They're drawing in outside air, and they're compressing it into the pneumatic system to drive things like the air conditioning packs. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Cool. Love it. This is the kind of thing, if you've got a long flight, folks, you want to start playing around and messing with switches on the flight engineers panel, you can go and have a good look through the different systems that's modeled in this. It really is quite phenomenal to see the depths that you've all gone into to replicate this classic airliner. We've got a question from Ethan. He says, I don't know if you'll know this question, because I guess this is maybe an InnyBuilds question, but do you know if the sounds were taken from real airframes? He asked about, Echo 19 Boris. I know that InnyBuilds work very closely with Echo 19, so maybe they were involved with the sounds on this aircraft. Do you know anything about that? That's right. There we go. Yeah. So the sounds are Echo 19 via InnyBuilds for this project.
Yeah.
Cool. Pauletti asks, does this aircraft have a logo light? That is I like that question. That's a good question. It doesn't.
It predates the logo light, which actually made me sad, and I almost had one added, and maybe I still will, but I missed it. In fact, this plane didn't come with a strobe light, and it was retrofitted, and it was called a strobe beacon.
Yeah.
And we had that added because I was very concerned that if you couldn't turn the strobe light on, that there would be a bunch of people trying to fly in virtual airlines or with trackers that would get penalized. So
that is there you go, the little details that you go to. I love the fact that it's the APU is optional. It's almost like a custom option. You see nowadays with the modern airlines, all the crazy different things that they can have that the customer features, but the fact that an APU is something that was, I guess, is it retrofitted? Is that the right phrase that we would go for?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was available later on from the factory. But,
sure.
Yeah. By the way, we missed our time.
We missed that. We're too busy chatting. We've all done that. Too busy chatting.
So I'm gonna idle the power because we don't need de-icing. And
that's my favorite switch.
Pull the horn cutouts.
That's my favorite switch. That one. Yeah.
Yep. We have a joke. We did possibly thousands, but certainly hundreds of hours of testing before release on the developer side, and It was my favorite thing. The lead developer on the project, David, he always pulled this, and then inevitably he would stall the plane. So be careful. Pull this handle.
But it's red for a
caution.
reason. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, it is red.
If you
for
just
a
ignore
reason.
it, and yeah.
So what that, for those of you who don't know, what that switch does, essentially it's a barrier to try and stop, pilots and flight engineers stalling the aircraft. If you pull the throttle levers all the way back to idle, the horn will sound at you and it will not like you very much. It's basically to say, hey, you've pulled the power to idle, you're going to risk stalling the aircraft if you keep them there for too long because your airspeed's going to potentially drop too low.
That's right.
However, that tab there means that you can stop the horn and do whatever you want with the thrust levers and it won't shout at you.
Yeah. So this, so you'll get this is really just a landing gear warning horn. You'll get that warning horn if you're at idle thrust ever.
Yeah.
Or if you are, I'm gonna forget the exact criteria, but it's basically, I think any flaps or maybe 25 or greater with the gear up.
Right.
So there's a couple of scenarios that will cause the landing gear horn to shout at you.
It's it's in the modern day Boeings you'll still get it if you go past a particular degree of flap without the gear down and things like that. We call it the noob alarm. I think is what some people call it. I think in the 744, if you go flap 25 without the gear down, it'll start buzzing at you. So they took elements of it and still applied it into the modern day Boeings. Which I really love. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're now racing towards hyper at 18,500 feet, so we're going to be high, but such is.
That's not the end of the world. Like you're looking at the arrival, we've got a tremendous amount of time to take ourselves onto the downwind if we are going to do a one right arrival. So, I get this is it. It's a use case example, folks, of how easy it is when you're chilling out and enjoying the cruise to stay on top of things. How many? I think let me have a look. The VOR frequency for Frederick is 11685. So have we got that tuned to see how far away we are? Yeah, 11685.
Yeah, we've got it tuned on 2. So we're 41 miles from Frederick.
Yeah.
And what I'll do is I'll actually just turn this to 2. So when we switch this out, we can follow that. And that outbound track so we want to track outbound on 190 for now. I think we're going to need to self-vector a little bit to the east.
Yeah.
But we'll cover that in a minute. So we should do a few things. I guess the flight engineer will go ahead and flip that switch for us if we go ahead and do our descent prep. So there's a few important things that happen in descent prep and descent approach.
Air compressors.
Just one of them is dealing with the air compressor stuff. But a particularly important item that has to be done is this pressurization switch needs to get moved into the landing position. So the flight engineer will do it, but if you're not using the flight engineer, you just need to make sure. Otherwise, you will land pressurized, slightly pressurized, and you will not be able to open any doors, and you'll file a bug. It says, "Why can't I open the doors?
Why can't I open the doors?" Yeah.
So make sure that happens because the way we simulated the pressurization light in the doors, which indicates when the cabin's pressurized and the doors can't be opened, is by not letting you open the doors. So.
We really hope you folks at home are having fun, like finding these things out. Sometimes it takes trial by error by forgetting to switch to the landing switch there, and then not being able to open the doors. That you make that mistake, and then never to make that mistake again when flying the aircraft. There's so many little bits and bobs that are packed into here. Here we go. SL asks, will the plane work in Sim Update 6 beta, or are there any restrictions?
No, there are not any restrictions. There are a few changes in the UNS for this aircraft, but for now, that instrument is standalone in this aircraft. The instruments and their updates will come generally to SU7, but in any case, the answer to the question is no. It is fully tested by us in both SU6 and SU5.
Perfect. There you go, folks. So, so no matter which version of the sim that you're running in MSFS 2024, you should be good. I guess the only other thing that we've not really done so far, Chris, whilst we're barreling down the descent, I don't know if a descent briefing is the right idea, but we're going to be doing the ILS for one right and everything. Did we need to tune anything for the ILS that we wanted to put in, or are we going to wait for that once we're on our downwind leg and a bit closer to the airport?
We should do that.
Let's have a look. I can try and bring
right
up
now,
the
I'm
chart.
just we're sort of blasting through 10,000 feet, so I've got
Cool.
the brakes on here, and we can enjoy our spoilers. They're fully out. They do experience a bit of blowback, but we're already slowing down. So
Yeah.
but yeah, this plane is tough to slow down.
Yeah.
And descend at the same time. It's very, very slippery. So I wonder. Yeah, we're still 19.
I think we're not too bad at all, actually. I think we're pretty much on the profile now, aren't we? If we're 19 miles from Frederick, yeah, I think we're actually pretty much bang on profile, because it was hyper expect at 8,000 and hyper is 18 miles from Frederick. So if we're 18 miles from Frederick and we're through 8,000, then actually we are now smack bang on profile and speed. So look at that, pro flying actually. So
good calculations, man.
Good, yeah, just about. We got there. This is it. This is one thing. It's all as I mentioned. You know, it can be trial and error. Calculating your descent. We mentioned about the way that you calculate descent in terms of, you know, the math that you need to do for it. But one thing that we didn't speak about really is the rate of descent. You know, how would you know exactly how many feet per minute to descend if you didn't miss your top of descent point? The basic math that I know for that one is your ground speed times 5. So if you're traveling at, you know, 500 knots, you would need to be descending at about 2,500 feet per minute. You ask, well, I can't see anywhere in front of me that tells me what my ground speed is. But if I'm not mistaken, the INS will show that, won't it? The INS has actually got quite a lot of functionality with it, with things like that.
Yeah, that's right. So if we turn the knob all the way to the left here, we can see our track. This is a true track, by the way. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not magnetic, but it will give us our ground speed here, which is 290 right now. And we can also just get a guess by referencing our true airspeed.
True airspeeds. Yeah. Cool. So there you go. So there's all sorts of little things like that when learning this aircraft, you know, you may need to factor into your flying. And so hopefully elements like the virtual flight engineer is going to take that workload off you a little bit. But there's many things that, you know, you need to keep your eye on. You can see that Chris, now that we've leveled out at 8,000 feet, he's managing the thrust levers to give us about that nice 250 knots. And it's just keeping your eyes, you know, flowing. I guess the number one piece of advice I've always been told, and I've always tried to adopt, especially when flying complex airliners, is that you should always be at least one step ahead of the aircraft and what's going on right now, especially with a retro high fidelity airliner like this that relies on many elder systems, I guess you could say. Being 1 or 2 steps ahead of the aircraft is only going to prove to do you well in your flying endeavors with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's right.
So where are we now? Right now, Chris, we're on the downwind leg. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we are 5 miles. Well, we're not quite on the downwind yet. We're 5 miles from Frederick.
Yeah.
Which is the end of our arrival procedure, and then we're going to fly outbound from Frederick on the 190 radial, which we've got tuned up here on VOR2, and we're currently set to show VOR2 on our HSI. The SIVA is going to handle our final outbound leg here, but I'm going to switch it. I'm going to kind of let it. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to drop into heading mode now.
Yeah.
So that's going to turn us here, and then I'm going to flip this switch. So we're going to get rid of the SIVA. And now we've got the VOR, and I think what we'll do is just, we're a little bit left already. So I'm going to just give it maybe a little bit of a correction until we intercept. Go back to heading mode here. Nope, the wrong way. No, I was already in heading mode.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then I'm going to leave this on VOR and just let that kind of capture. So the VOR, we just passed it. We're just to the left of it a bit. And you can kind of see it here on the RMI coming up behind us. So I think we should get down.
Yeah.
We should descend to 3,000 feet.
3,000 sounds good. So we're
So
going
we'll
for
just-
the ILS 1 right approach.
That's right. And in a minute, we'll check out what that frequency is going to be. So we're going to go ahead and enjoy the fact that our horn cutout is still pulled and
Mhm.
idle the thrust again and just kind of descend here a bit and try to maintain 250. And I was in the middle of looking up, so 110.1. So we'll set nav 1 to 110.1.
Yeah.
Oops, I overshot it. There we go. And now we're getting DME on that, so we can kind of keep track. And my plan is generally to kind of get out to about a 10-mile final.
Mhm.
So 10 miles out, 11.3 miles out is 4,000 feet, and 8 miles out is 3,000. So I think if we get to 3,000 and we start our turn back at 10,
Yeah.
that should
That
be
works
good
nicely.
for sort of self-vectoring.
And then is the course, I think the course is 011, is that right? 191 outbound, 011 inbound, is it?
Yeah, why is it hiding from me?
Yeah, there
Yeah,
you go. Right
approach
top
course,
left. Yeah,
011.
011. Perfect.
All right, and this versus. So yeah, we're descending about 1,500 feet a minute. I've got some spoilers out to keep our speed under control. Descending through 6,000 now, on our way to 3. Let's run some more checklists. So we'll run the descent approach checklist now. This is going to do things like getting our lights on. And,
Pressurization.
yep, there's the pressurization mode to landing.
Yeah.
Pneumatics. Set. Passenger signs. Is on. Landing lights.
Not doing a good job of flying outbound correctly.
Fuel boost pumps.
So we can
Right.
see that we're the right side of the VOR, aren't we? We're definitely on that downwind leg still.
Yeah,
nicely.
we're on the downwind and we're to the left
ACF pumps.
of it, which is actually what I intended anyways, so I'm going to be
Yeah.
happy with it.
Pull forward. Approach.
Henry in the chat says it's nice going back to basics and actually doing stuff with the plane instead of letting the autopilot do everything. Again, it's an example of just how far we've come in aviation, right? You know, it's a marvel. You know, this was first flight in the 50s, and here we are, you know, 70 years later or so, and it's crazy to see how far aviation has come on in 70 years. But what a phenomenal treat that we've got, everybody, that we can jump into the simulator and 1 minute be flying, you know, a high fidelity airliner from the 50s, and then the next flying a high fidelity airliner from present date as well. So hopefully you folks get an appreciation for that historic sense of aviation when flying this aircraft.
So just to, oh yeah, see, we're actually heading straight for the airport here. I was afraid of that. And we can see it now. What I was going to do was tune, and maybe I will anyways, is I was going to tune the VOR that's actually on the field so we could get kind of a reference.
1135. I've got for that.
113.5. So we can use our RMI to just kind of get a reference. So, I mean, obviously we can see it visually, but if we were flying on instruments only,
Sure.
and we wanted to sort of get a sense, we would say, okay, well, we're nine nautical miles and we're heading right at it. That's not exactly what we want. So we'll just come left, I think, to 180. And we can see the SIVA can help us out with the winds. So right now the wind is 270 true at 8. So we've got a little bit of wind from the west, so we're going to get pushed a little bit west. Sorry, a little bit east.
And then you can see the virtual flight engineers also set the altimeter for us, so it's got 29087, so that we know that we're on the local pressure. So that's good as well. Right. So all of these things, you know, if you forget them, we all know it can happen, right? You can forget to set something like that. You can be like, oh gosh, I'm establishing on the ILS and I'm still in standard pressure, but the virtual flight engineer will help with elements like that.
That's right. So the plane is all set now until we want to do the final before landing checklist, which we'll do basically after the final approach fix once we're stabilized.
Sure.
So the only thing I want to do now is click over here, get into the landing. Our field elevation is, I'm guessing, 500 or 600 feet. You want to check me on that?
Yeah, I can double check it for you. Let me have a look. Give me just a second. Elevation is 300.
Okay.
312 to be exact.
But I will say the difference between those two in terms of landing speeds or landing distances will be measured in really inches. So you don't have to get this field elevation exactly right. So we're going to choose flaps 40, dry, and we're just going to set some bugs here. And that's really all there is to it. So we know our VREF is 140. This is really like a VATO speed is what it's actually called in this plane.
Okay.
It's basically the threshold height speed we want to be.
Right.
And if you make an adjustment here on this wind, you're going to get a bug speed, and that's what we actually set our bug for. So the orange bug is what we're aiming for. That's what is also going to drive the sort of fast, slow speed indicator here.
Sure.
Come back to 190 now. And then I'm basically just going to watch this DME till we get kind of 10, 11 miles out, and then we'll do a 180 and come into land.
Brilliant. The only other thing that I guess we don't need it on a lovely day like today, but I do like the obnoxious sound of it, is the rad out call. So I normally put
good job.
I wonder if that's just a good thing just for minimums. So this is something that's an interesting one, because in modern day aircraft, there you would have the difference between the baro altitude and the radio altitude, but I guess in this it's just that radio altitude selector for the minimums.
That's right. Yeah, your first officer, someone in the cockpit would be calling a baro minimum.
Yeah.
But in this case, what we do is just simulate the radio altimeter, so it's really a decision height,
Sure.
and we'll just set that to 200, a little over 200.
Yeah.
I tend to like to give it a little bit of a buffer because, I guess in real world flying too, because if you hit that height and then you start a go around, you'll fall well below
it anyway.
that.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So we're now at 3,000 feet and we're tracking outbound. So what will happen when we start to reduce speed? The virtual flight engineer is going to help us with some of the flap gates. Is that correct as well?
Well, help us in terms of
them, but yeah,
he'll just inform us of when we can do things. But I'm an anxious fella when it comes to getting this plane slowed down. And so as soon as we get into the range, and there's placard right here, so basically as soon as we're under 223, which we're there, I'm going to go ahead and put flaps 14 out, because these flaps are draggy. And you will accelerate on the glide path if you're not careful. So
looks like we're below the glide path now as well, so we're tracking out.
We are, so we're ready to turn, and we're going to do that. So we'll initially just make a 90-degree turn to 280, and we're going to let the speed kind of come back to. It is an interesting thing about this autopilot that may be worth mentioning. The maximum bank angle on this autopilot is 35 degrees, which is why they actually did a lot of turns just with the knob. But I'm just going to let it yank and bank us through here.
That's quite a good turn for 707 with those huge wings as well. 35 degrees of bank is probably about as far as you'd want to go with it, I feel.
That's right. All right, so bringing power up now, because now that we're level and our draggy flaps are...
Here's an interesting one. The flap indicator to the left of the landing gear shows in degrees of 10, 20, 30, 40 and down. But the actual flap settings are 14 and then 25 and then 40 and 50. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean,
Weird,
so
isn't it?
I guess I'll say the thing that I've said a lot is that this plane,
Flights localized.
there is no brand new 707-320C that we can reference.
Yeah.
And the cockpits of all the pictures, they're all different.
Localizer alive.
I've done a bad job here. You distracted me.
That's my fault. I'm asking you questions.
It's okay. So we're gonna get. It's all right. We're just gonna. ATC had told us they're gonna fly us through the localizer and bring us back the other way for spacing. Yeah. So there, we had to compile, and we worked with Indie Builds closely on this. Right? They went and visited some planes as well, and we kind of combined references to build, I guess, what I would call kind of an idealized view of what this plane was going to be. And yeah, but these gauges we're in a 320C. I guarantee that. That is for sure true.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. No, it was just a tidbit thing that I saw.
Yeah, it's unique, isn't it?
We need to arm the approach because we're coming up on the glide slope as well. So do we need to arm it on the autopilot to intercept it?
Sure. We can do that. I don't know that we're actually going to capture it, and I was just going to kind of hand fly it, but...
oh, cool. Well, yeah, it's gone glide slope in green, so it'll be interesting to see, but yeah, I guess we can follow it in.
Yeah, I was going to just...
I suddenly saw, I didn't mean to, I just suddenly saw the glide slope.
No, you were right to call it out because I got distracted again. But we're going to... So we're just going to follow... I'm just going to follow the flight director right now.
And then the last thing
I guess obviously you can see everything out there, but
yeah. And then it's just gear and flaps for landing, and then the virtual flight engineer to do the checklist, I guess.
That's right. So we're just following the flight director here, although it's kind of angry at me right now. It's going to come back now. There it comes. Yeah. All right. So now we've gone through vertically. We're gonna let the flight engineer do his bit now.
And manual spoilers, you know, yeah, that's another thing as well, folks. Yeah, good call out. 777 driver says so. There's no auto brake, and there's
no auto brake, no auto spoilers.
Yep. So you've got to control all of that. Although I have found that it slows down pretty nicely just under its own, you know, with friction, with gear on the runway, I guess. So. And the reverse sounds are very satisfying with reverse thrust, I will say as well.
Completed.
All right, so that's flap set, that's landing gear down, 2 red, 2 white. Everybody, please wish Chris luck for his landing into Washington Dulles.
Oh, that's right. I'm being rated. I should have turned on the thing to measure it so I could have...
so we could have seen that. Everybody can just put their predictions in and see what they think.
Your 160 or 180 from yesterday. It was.
Yeah, that wasn't too bad. That wasn't too bad. That wasn't too bad. That 160. I'll take that. But not too great with the crosswind. I think that's something else as well. Is, you know, like you still, even though the main gear's down, you've still got to fly the aircraft to get the nose on the ground, to combat any crosswind with the aileron and everything as well. All right, I'm gonna shut up. Let Chris concentrate on greasing this aircraft into Washington. So enjoy the landing, folks.
You should be telling me that I'm high and fast.
1 dot high, Captain. I should be saying, yeah, the CRM skills and everything like that. Watch the speed, Captain, kind of thing. Yeah, correcting. There we go.
300 feet.
The varying levels of CRM. Advise, you know, request, and then do. I think is the 3 scales of CRM or something I got told.
Not very good.
That was okay. That was positive contact right on the touchdown markers. That was fine. That was right on the markers. Right into reverse thrust.
That was like 400. That was no good. I can tell.
The pressure of the stream. We'll never know. Look at that. There we go. That's a great view. I like that view with the spoilers up there and everything.
Yeah. Some spoilers and some reversers. So the reversers aren't as...
Yeah, they're not like bucket reversers and everything. Yeah.
but they're buckets inside the engine actually.
Right,
Which is kind of cool, and that is animated. So if you get right up close to him, you can kind of see that. All right. Anyways.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be Ryanair music playing on this one afterwards, as they like to do. Yeah, there we go. Well, we've made it down, everybody. A successful flight down to Washington Dulles from JFK with a mixture of INS navigation, some VOR, a bit of ILS there as well, right at the very end to get us in. But hopefully it's been a good showcase to show you guys just what this aircraft is capable of. And it's maybe not an aircraft, if you're not familiar with these retro style of aircraft, that you're going to be able to master on your first, your second, or your third flight. But even from somebody like me who's not spent, I don't want to know how many thousands of hours developing this aircraft, I would implore you to stick with it and to enjoy making some of the mistakes that you might make learning something retro, to then it will make it that much more satisfying once you nail your first flight with this. And I mean, Chris, from your perspective, developing this aircraft and everything, I'm sure there's been a great satisfaction kind of seeing users in the community enjoying it for that first time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously release is stressful for every development team always. And so seeing it go off kind of largely without a hitch and fingers crossed, not a lot of bugs encountered. There certainly is a list. We've certainly got a long list of things that we've noticed in streams, even if people didn't notice. So there will be updates, obviously, and fixes coming out. Some stuff, despite all the testing, just makes it through the cracks because someone tried something that we never thought to try or something like that. So anyways,
does something funky. Yeah, right.
Yeah, this plane will be getting updates, and but yeah, I'm really excited to see people finally enjoying it. I've been flying it for a couple of months, and I look forward to actually being able to log it on flight tracking and enjoy that. Yeah, and I'm not sure. Read the manual if you like manuals. Rewatch this. I'm sure lots of people will be doing lots of videos on it for tutorials as well on the different systems. And enjoy the automation.
Yeah, that's it, folks. And I think as we go through this after landing flow and we get ourselves parking up here, Chris pointed out there, if you do feel like you experience anything that you want more information on, or you think that may be a bug, if you're experienced with this aircraft, feel free to report it on the forums. What's really great on the MSFS forums is that, we can have a dialogue between people. If there's a bug that you think is in the sim with a particular aircraft or something, other, forum members and community members can try it out for themselves and see if there is an issue that may need to get investigated, and then we can of course look at logging that and getting that into the system. We've also got our official feedback and a thread there as well with polls that you can enter in. So if you folks have picked up this aircraft, or if you've downloaded it yourself and given it a fly, and you want to let us know your comments, you want to let us know if you're enjoying it, whether you've tried the barrel roll. I've still not seen too many pictures online of people trying the barrel rolls. There's been a few here and there, but I need to see more pictures on the forums of people trying the famous prototype 707 barrel roll that Tex Johnson did famously in the 50s. So
it's hard to do.
Yeah,
it's
it is
doable.
I think you've tried it yourself, haven't you, Chris? What are your top tips?
It's doable, but it's hard, and as is reflected by the real world results. There was you and I might have chatted about this, but there's a Lufthansa crew that tried it on a training flight and killed themselves. So it is not.
Yeah, that's not good. I didn't know that. It's
not a foregone conclusion that you can successfully roll the 707.
No.
But I mean, not too fast, not too slow. Give yourself some recovery altitude.
Yeah.
And start with power and a nose high pitch. You can do it.
Brilliant. Henry says he flew it before and saw the solar eclipse. Yes, of course, the solar eclipse that we spoke about at the very beginning of the stream. I know some of you have been exploring that in the simulator, which looks very cool to have modeled in there. So we hope you've been flying the 707 with the solar eclipse. One thing that we've not actually covered in this, and I don't know if we'll show it today, maybe we'll leave it as a little Easter egg for you folks, but I would implore you all again to actually go and have a look at this aircraft with the night lighting as well. Go and see how this it looks like something out of, well, you can see my background here. I'm a big Star Wars fan, but it's like we're in the Millennium Falcon once you've got the integrated lighting all up in the background. for all the different panels. So go and check out the night lighting as well, and do a night flight in this aircraft, because it's very, very, very cool.
Yeah, there are so many light knobs and switches and rheostats and more switches for the lights. It's actually insane. They're all detailed in the manual, but they're over here, they're over here, they're back here, they're here, and then the well, I can show it really quickly.
Yeah, let's
super
do
out
it.
of time, but we put a couple quick views in here already. So, but one of them is right, like you can go to the lighting panel. So all these lighting panels control the lights, cargo door. So yeah, and the aft, actually that wasn't the lighting panel one, but this is the aft galley, and we've got all the lighting controls here. So yeah, the lights, they all work. It's actually pretty tedious, which I'm glad I didn't try to demo it. But it's kind of tedious to figure out which ones do which things. I think it's all spelled out in the manual, but
Cool.
yeah. So this is the cabin, and
I think, the only other thing that we didn't show, actually, I'm going to ask you to go straight through the door that's in front of you with, I think you know exactly where I'm going with this one.
Yep.
So have a look through here. Once we go through this door here, obviously with this being a combi model, the door opening out of the passenger section into the cargo section. And Chris, this cargo, I guess, is dynamic the right word? This will actually appear once you put cargo in.
That's
via the
right.
EFB.
It appears via when you add weight. That's actually true of the baggage areas below as well.
Cool.
And I guess I'll say one thing. This is not a bug.
Oh, yes.
They pulled in the model that we looked at, the second lab was turned into a closet. Because there's no reason really for two labs up front when it's not in an all passenger configuration. So since this has combi, they pull the lab stuff, or they never install the lab stuff here, and they use it as a storage closet. The lab is in there.
The naughty corner, the naughty cupboard for bad landings maybe.
Yeah. And this
Cool.
is the forward lighting panel. So yeah, I'm sure I'm way over time, and I'm sure people want to get on with their days.
It's a complex aircraft. I've just got one quick question. 777 driver just asked, since this plane is native to MSFS, are all the controls via MSFS default bindings? If not, will there be an LVAR list?
Well, let me think about that for a minute. I think, I mean, if there's a default binding, we use it. Let me say that to start with. But yeah, that's a good question for things like the flight directors and stuff.
Sure. If you need to go back and consult people on it, we can always chase it up, and post it on the forums and things if you need to go and double check things.
I think what we need, I think the answer to that is, we talked about this before, and I didn't get it in the manual, but I should put it in the manual, and we should update the manual. So I think that's probably what we'll try to figure out.
Yeah.
So some of the stuff, I guess the only other thing I'll say, I need to consult with some people, but we also, I think, can get some more of that stuff set up in like the aircraft specific profiles, but I shouldn't speak authoritatively on this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the quick answer is for stuff where there is a default binding, we absolutely use the default bindings. For things where there aren't, is what we need to sort through.
Awesome.
But the worst case, we can produce a list.
Perfect. I guess there's one more thing that we need to do. Should we let the virtual flight engineers shut down these engines, and then we can close out for the evening?
Yep. So let's. We're just here to the shutdown.
Shutdown checklist.
Let him do his flow. He'll even do the engines and everything for us, won't he? Which is brilliant.
3 and 4 turbo compressors. Off.
Okay, we'll let him run through his flow, folks. Last chance, if you've got any other burning questions before we close out for the evening, please feel free to put them in the chat now, as we'll shortly be closing up. Once again, as we mentioned, this VOD for this live stream will be available on our YouTube channel, so we'll make sure that it's uploaded on there. I don't know if it'll be available right away, just because obviously it's quite a a lengthy video that we'll need to download and then re-upload. But keep an eye out on the Microsoft Flight Simulator YouTube channel, and we'll make sure to upload this VOD on there. So if you did want to go back through anything, listen through anything again, or run through any stuff that we've covered this evening once more, then you'll be able to do so on there. But there we go. Yeah, it looks like he's just closing out his last few steps. And then the aircraft is safely shut down on stand. So we hope you really enjoyed this one. Before we close out, Chris, I guess any closing comments from you about the 707?
I don't think so. No, thanks to everyone for watching. I'm glad you're gonna put my distracted piloting online for perpetuity. And I will just emphasize something you said, Matt, which is, there's a thread for this aircraft on the forums, and we read every single post that goes in there. So if you have a bug or you're encountering an issue, put it there. That's the right place for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Bug reporting hub. We've got the tag 707 in there. So make sure that if you're reporting a bug that you're filling out the bug report template, and that's in the aircraft section of the bug reporting hub. That just makes my life a lot easier when we're then logging those internally and making sure that it's tracked to the right people. And then, yeah, any feedback that you've got, any general impressions that you've got, any cool screenshots that you want to share, any sentiment that you want to pass to Chris and the team about this aircraft, feel free to leave it in that thread there that CD is just kindly linked in there. But on that, we are safely shut down on our flight from New York JFK to Washington Dulles in the 707-320C. Really hope you enjoyed this one, Chris. Yeah.
Can I say one more thing? I wanted to mention this because I saw it online.
Yes.
So even if we go here to securing the aircraft, which will unpower it, I saw a few people.
I know what you're going to say. Yes. No, I know what you're going to say because I questioned this myself before you even go to it.
Has about a 30-minute battery in it. It will just stay on, and when it reaches the low battery, this battery light will come on. So you do need to turn it off.
So even though the virtual flight engineer will turn off all the systems, it is correct logic that the INS stays on because it has its own battery.
Yeah, I mean, we maybe should have him turn it off, but we don't have him. Generally, we don't have the flight engineer do things that are
the captain might be batting his hand there. The pilot might be batting his hand there, asking him why he's touching his INS if you do that. Yeah.
So anyways, that's all. Thank you,
cool.
guys.
No, that was a good note. I'm glad you mentioned it. That is more than happy for you to interrupt on that one because that is a good point to call out. Brilliant. Well, there we go then, folks. The aircraft is secure. It's completely cold and dark now, ready for the next crew to take over, which will hopefully be you folks to enjoy this beautiful aircraft. So we'll leave it in your hands. Go and enjoy the 707. Chris, once again, a big thank you for joining us on the live stream today. Really do appreciate you taking time out your day to help showcase this aircraft in front of all of these lovely people. So, folks, please show your appreciation for Chris for all of his hard work and all the team at Working Title and Any Builds for the great work that they put into this aircraft. It's a real joy to fly, so we all hope that you enjoy it. We're going to close out there, though, for this evening, everybody. The next live stream on this channel will be CD back with the regular crew for Community Flying Friday this Friday. I'm not too sure where he's flying yet, but again, keep an eye out on the forums and he'll post all the details there. And keep your eyes peeled because we might have more developer showcase live streams of some more aircraft in store for you very soon. We'll close out there for the evening, folks. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you again on the MSFS official channel very soon. Good night.